Good afternoon, everybody. It's 2 o'clock. I think we'll get rolling on the meeting. Denise is getting some things arranged, so I think we can get rolling and take care of a few items as she's finishing getting prepared and trying to get connected. It looks like that may have happened. First item of business is roll call of members.
Foster Sawyer.
Here.
Dan Richer.
Here.
Technical difficulties all the way around, excuse me.
Your pen?
Thank you. Orland Paulson.
Here.
Laverne Cook.
Here.
Robert Akers.
Here.
Tim Rogers.
Here.
Chuck Jasper.
Here.
Sandra Bashara.
Here.
Steve Hasenorl.
Here.
We have a quorum. Does everybody have their board packet? Except for,
Next item of business is approval of agenda, and I had one thing I just wanted to add. It would take about 2 minutes. And that'll be right after the approval of the agenda. So I'm not sure if anybody else has any other changes they want to recommend. Get a motion for that?
Motion to approve the change.
Second?
I'll second that.
I'm sorry, what's the change?
I'm just adding a short comment from the chairman on a recognition thing, just right after the
Oh.
approval of the agenda.
Okay. I'm sorry, who moved to approve?
I did.
Steve? Okay. And seconded?
I agree.
Thank you.
All right, I'll be quick with this. It's kind of, to me, it's important. I think to everybody else involved too, and to quite a few people that are not involved. Back in June, the Board of Water and Natural Resources approved a funding package which included $5.6 million for East Rapid City water system expansion. That included a $1 million grant, a $4.6 million loan, a $3 million in principal forgiveness. And that went to the Valley View, Longview Sanitary District, and the Mesa View Water Association to get connected to the Rapid City water system. Our staff person was very instrumental in getting that rolling and taking care of getting the grant application and getting everything growing. You're going to bring quality water to 700 people and 250 homes in those organizations. That's going to increase their quality of life, and that's something I think that we work for, and I just want to recognize you for all your work with that. Thank you. So,
Thank you, Tim.
all right. Next item of business is minutes of the previous, approval of the minutes of the previous meeting, May 21st, 2014. Are there any comments on the minutes?
Yeah, we got a comment. Do you want to make a motion, or do you want to make comments now?
I'll go ahead and discuss your comment, and then we'll make
Okay,
a motion to change if we need to.
Yeah, I was listening to the tape, and the audio, member of the public objected to no public comment, and you said it'd be noted. Just curious as to where it's noted.
I don't know if it was noted here, but it was, I will apologize for that. One of the things that I wanted to also bring up is if there's a member from the public that has a public comment, that somehow they get recognized. Sometimes we get blown through this stuff and we just cruise along, and somebody may have a comment and I don't see a hand or a motion or something to see that, and we don't ask for public comment. So I'll apologize for that, but it was noted. I didn't really feel that that particular action needed a lot of public comment. It was a contract between the board and the RCAC, but it was noted, and my notation was to correct that in the future. So I'll be more cognizant of the public, but I also need some assistance in letting me know when somebody wants to comment. Anything further?
No.
If nobody else has any further comments, or entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion motion to, been made to approve, the second's been rendered. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
I abstained, I wasn't present for all of it.
Did you capture all that, Denise?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, did you intend to ask for public discussion on that motion?
No, but we can.
You already voted, so you didn't ask for public discussion. Did you intend to ask for public discussion?
I didn't think there would be, but since you're up, please go ahead.
Last meeting, I adamantly opposed your refusal to have public discussion on a contract, and you said that you would note that in the minutes. The only official record of this governmental body meeting is the minutes. I'd very much like for this board to put my objection in the minutes. You did not allow public discussion of the $80,000 contract, approximately $80,000 contract, without any public input. I think that's wrong. You did say you would note it.
Anybody from the board would like to make an amendment to the motion to approve the minutes to add Mr. Farabee's objection? on
Make a friendly motion.
I'll second.
There's been a motion by Dan to note in the minutes that there was a public objection on public participation by Dan, and second by Sandra. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
Again, I abstained,
So-
I wasn't present.
I'm sorry, I just, it doesn't matter. Okay, so
I made a friendly amendment to the First Amendment.
I think, if I may, it might be easier just to put it in this minute, the current minutes, that there was, that George had made a comment. I'll change the minutes.
Yeah, they've been
Change
approved.
the-
You know, so that's fine.
Okay.
I would like the minutes of the last meeting to reflect the objection and emphasize the fact that no public discussion was allowed.
It has been noted, and
And I
will be
would-
put in the minutes.
Suggest that going forward, make it a point to ask for a public discussion after a motion is made and seconded. Thank you.
It's not required that you have public comment after every motion.
All right. Next item of business is administrative item, payment of bills and transfer funds.
That's all moved.
We have a motion to move payment of bills and transfer of funds.
Second.
We have a second.
Steve?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
In our March meeting, we had a discussion concerning printing in the papers. And at that time, you said you directed to have put on the next agenda. And then it was not the last month's agenda. So I'm requesting that agenda item be put on next meeting to discuss the papers. The payment on the papers. So we can get that straightened out.
All right, let's bring that up as items from the directors. We'll note that and bring that back up to get on the agenda item. We have a motion to approve, a second on payment of bills and transfer of funds.
Question?
Any further discussion?
Question. Dan,
Yes.
you're not asking that we defer payment on publishing the minutes at this
No.
time, are you?
No.
Yeah, okay.
I just felt that was something we can bring up with board direct add on the next agenda.
Right, I understand.
All right. Any public comment? Before we vote. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Dan was opposed.
All right, July financial report. Denise prepared a report for us. We kind of asked for a monthly report or a bi-monthly report for each meeting, just to kind of see where we're at. And just checking to see if anybody has any questions on what she put together.
That was, current, yeah, the current financial.
Denise, do you want to add any color to that report?
This is basically the format that I've been using. So you'll see that our current bank accounts is 476,000. And remaining revenue that we can expect to come in is about 93,000. And taking out our current committed obligation funds through FY14 funds. This isn't just FY14, this is previous years' committed funds such as the Canyon Lake project for $100,000 and the on-site wastewater treatment grant. All of those funds taken out, and then what is estimated remaining in our current budget year. So it's just basically everything we have and are expecting for the rest of the year, and then minus our obligations and remaining budget amounts.
Anybody have any questions on the current budget?
On the accounting services for Catherine Haberman, is that in the,
That's the bill pay. We're done. Catherine Haverman, that was our accountant. She does our annual review every year.
oh, okay. I just was,
So, yep.
All right, I don't think we need to take action on this. I thought we
Nope.
no, I did, I just was curious.
Yeah, or, yeah, no, I
Was,
understand.
needed my mind refreshed on that one.
I was just saying, I don't think we need to take any action on this budget report. It was just for informational purposes, so we'll move on to the next item. All right, old business, Black Hills RC&D membership.
So this is an agenda item because last month this was on the bill pay and people were questioning our membership. They submitted an invoice to us for a $100 membership to Black Hills RC&D. And Black Hills RC&D, we've been a partner with Black Hills RC&D in the past. And they have, Denny Mann is here. Denny Mann is their new administrative manager. Black Hills RC&D has been really instrumental to West Dakota. They have given us letters of support for both the Rapid Creek 319 program and also for the USGS groundwater modeling program. If you guys have any specific questions, it was in your board packet in May or March, and then also I have the summary memo here for you. If you have any other questions about Black Hills Resource Conservation and Development, Denny Mann is here to answer any questions. Otherwise, like to entertain the motion for the membership.
So what we were doing with this is we were going to do a motion to approve the funding.
Approve a membership,
Okay.
a $100 membership.
All right, just to get to the discussion part, is there somebody want to make a motion to approve that funding, and we'll open it up for discussion?
I'll make that motion.
Vern?
I'll second it for discussion purposes.
We have a motion to approve and a second to open for discussion. Let's open for discussion.
Question, if we are a member, who's going to represent us at meetings?
Laverne used to go to the Black Hills RC&D meetings on a regular basis. I go just because I see value in going, and so I guess that would be up to the board, or if there's somebody that wants to go.
I don't know if it makes any difference which one of us go. I don't want to be the one, because there was some controversy over the way I handled it, I guess, so. But I really believe in the Black Hills RC&D. They're a gathering of the community, rather than like us, we're just a gathering of a small area. They're the whole community, the whole hills area, and they're the movers and shakers of all those communities get together, and I think it's really important that we belong to that.
Well, maybe then my question should be directed to Mr. Mann. What can Black Hills Resource Conservation and Development people do for this board to help us meet our duties as a board?
I guess we're certainly open to, we look at partnerships as being very important. And, a partnership with West Dakota Water is important to us. We think that water is primary in Black Hills. We're an association of all 6 counties in the Black Hills area. We were incorporated in 1968, so we've been active for over 40 years. And partnerships are extremely important. It's important for us to co-op with your projects. You co-op with our projects, so there's anything that we can do, to make things better, that's the direction we want to work.
May
Denny, ma'am. Oh, okay.
May I elaborate on that as well?
As far as I'm concerned, yes. I guess I'm asking for information so that we know what we're going to do if we're joining this organization, or should I say if we continue with this organization.
One of the dialogues that we've had with Black Hills RC&D is not only the sponsorship of the Rapid Creek 319 program, but how they can help us with the 319 program. They also have administrative services that we may be able to use. They also have a lot of closer connection to community members and stakeholders that would be a valuable link for us to go out there and reach our community members and stakeholders for the Rapid Creek 319 program. And like I said, they've already provided us a letter of support, and I think that carries substantial weight.
What kind of projects do you do as a group?
Well, we do about everything, anything that helps communities, that helps conservation organizations. We've worked on the Spring Creek water development projects. We're working right now with Rapid Creek and Whitewood Creek, and with Bar Engineering. So there's a lot of water development projects that we do. We started the 4 Cs, cows, condos, communities, and conservation in the Black Hills area. So there's, we have a lot of outreach efforts. We work closely with individual landowners on, on projects. And we have conservation districts. They're all members in all 6 counties in Black Hills. We've got county commissioners. Commissioner Peterson is active on our board, and county commissioners from all 6 counties. So
When do you typically meet?
we meet the 4th Thursday of every month at 9 a.m.
Tomorrow morning.
Correct.
I just said, where do you meet at?
At the NRCS office here in Rapid City.
Yeah.
My biggest concern when this came up last time was every time you read one of their documents, it always says the board of volunteers, and we were being charged $100 for every meeting. On that.
It's a $100 yearly membership.
No, this has nothing to do with
Oh.
it.
I'm not following you, Dan.
We were being billed $100 every time we went to a meeting, West Dakota.
Okay, from Florida.
That was my biggest
Okay.
That was my biggest problem with that.
Okay?
I don't really, personally, don't really know what they can do for us. But that's my biggest concern is if we do select somebody to go, I don't know if we're paying them.
What do you expect from a representative of this group as far as what kind of participation do you expect from us?
You know, projects that you're working on, what you need support on, you know, what we can do to assist is what we're looking for your organization. We want partnerships are important to us.
My biggest complaint was we never got a report of what was going on in your group. So we were just paying and not having any information about the group, as far as things went. So you were never really represented at any of our meetings of what was going on. And if we were going to be a member of the group, we never knew what was going on in the group because we never received any reports. That was my biggest complaint.
You guys generate minutes, meetings?
Yes, every meeting, we
The-
have minutes that get sent out to all of our members.
Chairman. Just a comment that occurs to me as I'm listening to Denny talk about the nature of the organization. It could be very useful for us if we're considering expansion in the future to have partnerships with people with a base in the whole Black Hills.
Oh, I have no problem with that. Matter of fact, our volunteer water testing program would be a good outlet
Absolutely.
for that.
So there's some obvious benefits there. And then another thing, I wondered, do we really need to attend every meeting? We could perhaps visit once a year or have them come here once a year and report and not have to pay for that.
Yeah, I wanted to address that item. To me, that's an internal item with our policy and payment to board members that we need to address separately. I'm all in favor of supporting for $100 membership a year with their group. Totally in favor of it. If they could offer us with the things you mentioned, what other people mentioned. My perspective, it would be good to keep on board. We just need to decide if we can get somebody there at the meeting on some basis or something. And if Denise is going there anyway, that could be our conduit. But at 9 a.m. is tough for me on a weekday. I'm sure for a lot of people, so. But if she can make it, that would be nice.
And I included their minutes, some of their minutes in May's board packet. I'll just continue to add the minutes to the board packets.
But to address your issue, Dan, I think that's a policy thing we need to state. And
That's what I
we
said, it
almost-
wasn't his part, that's not his.
Yeah, that was almost part of
This is us.
something, yeah, we gotta address it currently, so.
And that was the main reason we were being billed, never got a report, and that was the main reason we pulled out.
So let's make a point, we'll address that back at an agenda item on next week. Address that, so. Any further comment?
I was just also wondering, as a member, do we have a vote on your board?
Yes, you do.
Correct. Does that have to be one of our directors, or could that be through Denise, or
It could be anyone you appoint.
anyone? Okay. So we'll have to figure that out too. All right. Any further discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any comments from the public? All right.
I have one question, one last question. Is this gonna have to come up for vote again? Since it's funded?
Since what?
Or is the last meeting?
No.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the question.
Good question, I don't know. It's everything.
I'm sorry, what was the
We
question?
need to approve this every year.
Every
Do
year.
we have to have another go-around on this, since we're gonna give them money? Or was last meeting?
It will come up on the bill pay, just like any receipt that I receive, it comes up on the bill pay. And then you can act on it, you can have it removed as a discussion item off the bill pay at any time. But yes, since it's an annual charge,
Yeah.
then, so yes, it would come up again next year as soon as we receive the invoice. Just like every invoice that we get on the bill pay.
Does that answer your question?
Kind
I'll send her.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if we do continue with this, we need to figure out which board member, because I think a board member should attend these meetings. Nothing wrong with Denise going, she's more than welcome to go, but if we're the board and we are asked to vote, we don't, as a board, need to take more responsibility for the actions that are being voted upon. And using Denise as a surrogate makes us look like we're a lazy board.
Do we have a volunteer?
That's here in town?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Yeah, I suppose I can go.
It's not very convenient for me to work schedule.
Oh, I was gonna say it's not the most convenient for me, but it's once a month?
Once a month.
Okay, I'll work it in.
Any further comment? All right, all in favor?
Do you need to address the reimbursement of the director attending the meeting at this time?
But there needs to be a
At the
draft
next.
separate from this motion.
Yeah, it's going to be addressed separate from this motion.
Okay.
That's a note on
Roll call.
items from the directors. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. All right. No.
And that was a unanimous? Was
Was.
there, okay.
Okay, the next item, Canyon Lake Restoration is mine. I'll try to get the best update that I can. What we're asking for today is, we've been working with all the parties, trying, we set aside $100,000 to give to the city, whoever the contractor is, to dredge out Canyon Lake after he was conducted. It was determined that we'd be more like $360,000. So what we did there is we put out an incentive of $50,000 match from West Dakota. We're working on the city to try to get $100,000. The third item that I ran across is I was contacted some contacts in EPA on water grant funding. They directed me to the state of South Dakota Water Revolving Fund, and I talked to Mike Perkovich down there, who indicated that we may possibly get some funding from their fund. He said you need to get an application, and I explained everything to him, and he wanted the city to do that. So we've been working through with the city to get preparing the application for the mayor to sign. We got approval for that to get on the water revolving fund. That action was approved Tuesday night. So we'll get that application in, and the next step is to send in the project, which we identified that request for $100,000, 103 actually, to clean out as much as it was that we can.
Is this the old stuff in yellow?
Yeah, I'll get to that in a second. That's what I'm coming up to next. So we're working down that path to get all the funding in place, because we just don't want to spend $100,000 and do a third job. I'm kind of working outside of that with everybody to try to get more funding. The second piece of this is that we developed a brochure, and it's discusses the project, and that it's kind of requesting donations from public and private people, and we'll take that out. But what we need from the board is approval to serve as a depository for that money, and we're just going to be the bank. We're going to collect the money and give it to the city when it comes time to the project gets rolling. And I guess we just need a motion to approve to be able to do that function for them. The pamphlet there is kind of identifies the project. The items in blue are what we probably have money for to do. The items in yellow. The item. You got something, Dan?
I'm trying to get. I'm trying to talk to the expert.
Okay. The items in.
I'm not an expert, but the question was on there, and I guess I'm not positive on it. It says, we appreciate the donations we match by West Dakota Water Development up to 10,000 by fly fishers. All donations are tax deductible. Is it a 501c3?
We checked with that. I'm sorry, go ahead, Tim.
We had contacted the attorney at DENR, who does the legal reports, and he did research for us and found out that we had tax deductible, and there's provision in state law.
Oh, okay.
That we can do.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we were down here talking about.
Okay,
Because there are some,
that's gonna be my question too.
there are some caveats, you know, with the IRS on tax deductible contributions anymore.
Yeah.
They're getting a little more picky about it. But as long as that's been checked out like.
Yeah, that was one of the first things we did. That was our concern too. We were trying to find somebody with 501(c) organization that could do that. And that what we were doing is the amount of money that we were collecting was going to exceed their level to do a bigger audit, and they didn't want to pay for that bigger audit, so we had to find a different avenue. But so that's what we're looking for, is to be the banker for these donations.
Okay, so what liability are we acquiring when we're the trustees suddenly? That's my question. Because by saying we're gonna hold the money in trust is what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, I'm not sure what liabilities there are. You may know us more.
Yeah, well, we're going to be responsible. People are giving us money, suddenly we're responsible for accounting for it. How do we, what accountability do we have? How do we track it?
I believe you can help me out, but I'm assuming if we get a donation, it'll go into the bank, into the account, and we'll keep some type of.
Right, but it's dog-eared specifically for Canyon Lake. We got it, I mean, it's a totally separate pot of money in our records, because we don't want it to,
Mix in with our money.
we don't want it to increase our revenues at all.
Right,
So-
have we done like a lot of these funds that are set up for like specific charitable events where making
The-
a contribution to such and such account at the bank rather than make it payable to us? That's where my
I see
concern
where
is.
that,
You're saying set up a separate account at the bank specifically for
right.
that. We can do.
Specifically for this, so that we're not suddenly in
Yeah,
the
we can-
trustee business.
Yeah, that can be done, and we can modify.
We can
this
do that.
pamphlet to specify that it goes to the Canyon, that it's written to the Canyon Lake
I mean,
Restoration.
I don't personally want to be suddenly liable, and I don't think any of us on the board want to be.
yeah, if
No.
funds aren't accounted right for that group. it could be-
Right, so if it's made payable to a specific account at the bank, that can be then turned over, that I don't see a problem with.
Okay.
It definitely needs to be a lockbox account.
I can coordinate something with our bank.
Yeah, if we do that through the bank, then I think we're okay.
Yeah.
But this way, I'm in a bunch of them.
Okay. So on the brochure, the whole section where it's make checks payable will be to a certain account at a bank, and it'll be
Right,
sent
and
straight to that
The
bank.
fund is set up specifically for this project.
Okay. I'll
But it-
break out the magic wand and,
Our name is still on the bottom line then, isn't it?
yeah,
It
it's
goes through
basically
it.
it'd still basically be one of our accounts. It's just totally separate from
Yeah.
our,
It would be for accounting purposes that no funds were taken out unless it directly
Right, we'll
went
be
to
res-
that
we'll be
project.
responsible for signing
Yeah.
the check
It's like
and
Social
everything.
Security was supposed to be.
Requested that the checks be made to the Canyon Lake Restoration Fund. So,
Right.
in specific, and it'll go to that fund.
Right,
Mhm.
exactly.
And we'll make that change on here.
Yep.
Okay, no, that's easy to do.
so then, can I ask, so then would the board want our $50,000 match moved over there, or only moved over as match allowed?
I think that.
I think, I guess at the end of the day, we could just, we'll match whatever's in there when the time comes.
At the appropriate moment, we'll do the match.
Yeah.
Approach it.
We got to see what the city comes up with and what the state comes up with.
Okay.
And they-
Yep.
we get it to 50, we'll pass it over.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
But that's kind of the update. We've been working behind the scenes to get that done. We've been working with city council members and Skull and the city and everybody to try to get this forward. This only comes around every 15, 20 years to clean this out. And it's the thing that it may get pushed back another year because the Pactola is at its brink of water and it keeps getting water in, and they're trying to drain it down to allow for the drain in the Canyon Lake. And if they can't get it down and we have a wet fall, it may get pushed back another year or so. But that's just but regardless, we'll still continue on.
So this may have to be an interest-bearing account.
Yeah, we need a drought, we don't hear that either. But if you have any questions or comments on the brochure, get a hold of me or Denise, and if you have any suggestions for improvements and stuff. But we thought we'd get that out. The other people involved with this project are waiting for the brochure to take it out. And we have a lot of interested parties so far.
Motion on the table.
There's no motion on the table for that.
Yeah, so we need to get a motion to approve the account to house the money.
I make a motion that we open a separate type of account under our name to hold these funds for the Canyon Lake project.
I would second.
Got a motion and a second. Did you get that motion, Denise?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any discussion from the board?
No, from the public.
Any from the public? Yeah, thank you. Any comments from the public? All right, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's been a fun project, and it's going to continue. So. All right, the next item is Trinity Eco Fair Park. Dan is taking the lead on that.
Can I ask a quick question? So I had the brochure down there too. Did we want to approve the brochure, or is that, are we,
I don't think we need to, just with the corrections that we talked about.
okay, okay,
Now let's-
carry on, thank you.
Not unless you feel that we need to.
Nope.
All right, Dan.
Okay, as everybody remembers, Trinity Echo came to us, wanting $25,000 to assist them with their park. On the second go-around, we decided to, as a board, decided to form a committee to meet with them, which we did. And what we ended up hammering out is a contractual service agreement, and this is rough draft here, which basically we are not, in this we're not, the way this is set up, we're not giving them any money in the sense of a grant or donation or whatever you want to call it. We are going to pay them to maintain the park on an annual basis. Just like we have a service agreement with RCAC, we have a service agreement with Trinity. And that's basically what we came up with, was just what you see in front of you is the service agreement that was hammered out between the two parties.
Question, Dan?
Yeah.
So are you paying the service agreement $25,000 up front?
Up front.
So it's not a yearly cost to us, it's just.
It's a 1 year. This is a 1 year service contract, but it does say in there that they can come back in 4 to 6 months, and then Perry Lutheran Endowment Foundation may reapply for a new service agreement with West Dakota Water District 4 to 6 months prior to termination of this agreement.
So that opens an avenue for them for additional funding, potentially.
Correct.
And then there's the.
Plus, we're off the hook in a year.
Yeah, and plus, and then if they sell, and get prorated reimbursement back to us, correct?
Correct, and it's filed in the registry.
Thank you.
Amber?
Well, I got two questions. The service agreement is for something that's already working and stuff like this. They don't have even got this built yet, so how can you enter into a service agreement with something that's not there? Second of all,
I can answer that. That's why it's got a date here in parentheses.
okay.
second question, Sam?
Yeah, how are we knowing that, I mean, are they going to, how are they coming up with the fee for the service agreement? Is it actually going to cost that much a year to maintain it? That's another question I have.
That was their estimate based on, that was their high estimate, based on what they think it's gonna cost to maintain it and to do the testing, to see if the water is actually doing what it's supposed to be doing under there. And, their low estimate was 15,000 and their high estimate was 25,000. So the first year, knowing how things work, usually on the first year, I went ahead and okay going with 25,000 on the first year. It also stipulates in here that they gotta keep all their receipts and everything else, so they just can't come back for 25 grand every year.
But I don't see anything about any reports on here,
And
Let's,
that says they'll give an annual report.
manual.
let's
Got
say,
one of the 6 meetings.
let's say, on the focus of this, we were kind of looking for the discussion of what Dan had with the negotiations and the committee on the negotiations, and I think there are other members have some comments, so we
Okay.
could move forward to see if there's a motion, and then open it up to
Okay,
comment
for
by the
discussion.
board. Does that sound good?
Okay.
So if somebody wants to entertain a motion to get to discussion, we can do that.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Laverne?
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, we have a second motion and a second. Open up for comment from the members. I have some initial comments and thoughts. Going into this, I know that Dan worked, had several meetings with Ken to work this out. I thought our initial intent was is that what we were looking for is that in this agreement was to establish that the park would be open to the public. And that's the route we were going down to. And there was also a concern of church and state, which I think we can address. And that's where I thought we were going. It kind of ended up to be a service agreement. Some of my concerns are I think the $25,000 is high. This is going to treat a very small amount of water. It's a nice project. It's a best management practice that I think we need to fund. And I was thinking more like 5,000 with no stipulations on maintenance or reports or anything. I thought through this process and looked at the design about trying to get some type of report on monitoring, but what it is it's going to be an artificial wetland where the water goes into it, seeps into the ground, and they use some of that water to grow plants. And if they have a big gusher, it's going to flow through. But it's not going to be a lot of water treated. And I was looking at our big aspect of watershed and that we could use the money as we go into this 319. But I like the idea that they came to us with this project because it is control. And it's something I think we can sponsor, but I wanted to limit what we gave to them and also limit what we were requiring of them. And those are my comments. It's a great idea. If I was the city parks and recreation, or if I was South Dakota Parks and Recreation, I'd be dumping a lot more money into it because this is a nice concept and idea. We're a water group, and I think we need to focus on that aspect. But those are my comments. I would like to see the amount reduced to 5,000, and then some of the requirements in here eliminated, so we could give them 5,000 for what they're doing and move on. Those are my comments. I'll open up for everybody else.
Mr. Chairman, I think this is so valuable as an educational thing that I think the 25,000 is probably cheap in the long run. If people understand the way water works, I think we can't pass this up.
Thank you. Sandy?
Well, I was going to say, this is just an experiment, and I'm for running experiments to find out what goes there. But I've had an awful lot of people come to me, and I have talked to the Attorney General Mark directly, at the convention a couple weeks ago. The signage is very important so that we do not look like that we are supporting a church group. There's quite a few legal aspects that we really need to take have a good look at. The funding of this project, in most people's eyes, in my district and in a couple other districts, this is like taking a spoonful of water out of the creek and cleaning it and putting it back into the creek. Is it well worth doing that for any price? When it's not really going to do anything to change the environment. So is it a waste of money? This is a private entity, a church that's doing this, and funds can be obtained privately for it. They have nothing against the park being built. Matter of fact, some said that they would even love to go and use it. But is it government's business to be funding a private entity like a church in maintaining or doing anything with this?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
The biggest thing about this is it is a new way to look at water, how we dispose of the water. When we built our house years ago, everything was try to get the water in the ditch, get it out of it. This is try to save the water on your property and then use it so you're not running sprinklers and everything else to get your grass or your garden or whatever is growing. And again, yeah, this is a demonstration project and it may fail. But it is a different way. I don't think it's a new way, but I think it's a different way for Rapid City to look at how we are using our rainwater sources versus rain taxes. Maybe we could even get the city convinced that this works to people that do this can get out of their rain tax. But who knows?
Chuck?
Back in the very beginning, I said I really like the concept of what they're trying to do. But the way this is written, and I know Dan put a lot of work into it, and he solicited my comments, which I gave him freely, some of which I know he tried to put in here, but I think the line was dealing with the sheep, unfortunately, Dan. And I think he was ridden roughshod over, sorry to say. And I see that Sandra even had some contact with the Attorney General's office, and I think, as the attachment here indicates, we may well have reason to discuss this with our legal counsel before we consider signing it. I certainly am opposed to the way this is written. I certainly am going to vote against it. I can give you a whole list of reasons why, but here we're saying we're going to give them $25,000 now when we sign this at a date to be determined, and then they're going to presumably give us back $2,500 a year if we end up not sticking with this for 10 years, if we can't come to agreement on everything each year. I don't like the way it's written. I see too many faults with it, and I'm not going to sit here and list them all.
You got any
I'm opposed.
suggestions? You got any suggestions on how to fix it?
I would have, but I'm not going to sit here and
Okay.
list them all.
Any other comments, Sandra?
The Attorney General's office basically said that they would like to see all the plans, that they would like to come in and advise us on a lot of the legal issues on this. For the fact that if it's handled right, it's good. If it's not handled right, it's a very bad precedence and all kinds of things. So I would suggest that we have the Attorney General's office, the attorney that handles the water board issues in the state, take a look at this and advise us on this issue so that if we do go forward on it, we go forward on it properly. Then I would be more comfortable. I mean, their big thing was the signage. If the signage is not worded right, we could be in a heap of trouble. So, I mean, I think we need to take advisement from the state on this issue.
I'm not sure if you've seen the last email that came from the legal person.
Yeah, he said to hire,
Hire somebody, so,
Yeah.
not either route we have to go, but I think we need to get redirected on what we want in here, an amount, whether it's 25,000, 10,000, 5,000, and then what we want out of here. We need to give that direction, clear direction to Trinity and whoever does this, so it's very concise. And my
Sure.
direction would be whatever amount we agree upon. I recommended 5,000, or was it 25,000? But we need to identify what we want from them. If we're just gonna give them the money and we like the concept, go with it, or if we want something from them. I think we need to hash that out and
well,
define
my constituents said I need to vote no on this project.
Like I said, I'm very much in favor of what they're attempting to do. And I made that clear from the beginning, I still am, but not the way this is written.
We feel we need to get, I think we need direction if it's, or maybe we need to vote on it and then come back with another recommendation.
Yeah,
How does that
I
sound?
still think we need the public's comments as well, what they think.
Yeah, no, I'm just finishing up the board.
Yeah.
All right, any more members?
I'd like to see the Attorney General's, what they have to say about it. And it's tough. I'm for it. I'd like to see it done. I just don't want the legal aspect cleared so we don't get in any trouble. And if they can give us some kind of recommendation
Like
or
I said,
a,
I would be more.
opinion letter. Yeah, what's their opinion letter on it? They should be able to do that for us.
Uh-huh.
And I like the idea that it's just a one-year thing. If it don't work out, we don't have to do it again. We give it a chance. That's as long as we're legally cleared on it, I think it's a good job. I would like either 25, maybe a little high, but I think we need to get a set and quit going back and forth with them. I think we need to tell them what we're going to do, and they either approve it or they don't. That's there's been a lot of time frame to this. But if we can get that letter, opinion letter, I think would be the best bet.
We'd have to define what we're asking, what we're asking for first. Any other comments?
Oh, I was just gonna say, the Attorney General did say that they would back us with whatever our decision is. So it's not that they're saying, no, they haven't looked at it, they can't, he couldn't comment on the time until he had all the information. But still, they would back us with whatever decision we would do. And I wanted to let you all know that too.
May I clarify that? First of all, the state's attorney's office, they can't give us legal opinion. If we feel this is something that warrants a legal opinion, we have to seek our own counsel. They're not telling us to seek our own legal counsel. They're saying they can't offer us an opinion. So we can't use the state's attorney's office as our legal counsel.
No.
We have to have ours. So regardless, I mean, they can't back us on anything. They're not our legal representation. And so when I visited with Mr. Nays, that was the main thing. He had all the information. I sent him everything that we had at that time up to his office. He conferred with Marty Jackley, and what they had said is that if we get legal counsel, and our legal counsel views this as an issue that needs their opinion, then our legal counsel can go to them to get legal. But they can't offer their legal opinion. And they didn't say that this warrants legal counsel. They just said if this board thinks that it warrants legal counsel, that we have to get our legal counsel involved.
discussion from you guys?
No, I was just gonna say, if we're gonna do, I mean, if we do this, we do need to make sure that the verbiage and stuff is right, and we do need a council to get that right.
I guess my question was, is the legal counsel for, because of the religious affiliation or the nuts and bolts of the agreement?
For the affiliation, mostly on the signage that would be done to keep us separate from the church.
Okay.
In other words, if, why we're sponsoring this, because this is a religious entity's property.
I think we can address that in the contract.
We don't think that's.
Anybody else done? Right.
A couple of quick comments. First, the amount of money, 5,000, 10,000, 25,000, relative to what this board has, for lack of a better word, squandered in the last almost 30 years, it's a pittance. It is a fair amount of money, but it's a pittance in relative terms. However, before you folks vote, I'd like for you to consider that you're voting not as some private board, you're voting as a taxpayer-funded entity sanctioned by the state of South Dakota. Let me repeat that. You're a taxpayer-funded entity sanctioned by law by the South Dakota legislature. As I recall, the year was 1985. Do you want the name, and the name is in that statute, West Dakota Water Development District. It's specifically spelled out. Do you nine, before you vote, do you want to have that name attached to a project that's not government? Thank you.
Thanks, George. Anybody else in the public?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I had a question on,
Can I get your name? We didn't get your name last
Tina
time.
Mullally,
Okay, thank you.
M-U-L-A-L-Y. In reading this contract, it states that this service agreement will be recorded with the Pennington County Register of Deeds for a period of 10 years. That says to me that this particular project, they can come to you every year for 10 years and request money. And I don't believe, as a government entity, that you have my approval as a taxpayer to spend my money on something that's a private entity that I don't really believe benefits the public as much as you think it does. As just a normal person walking out on the street and walking through a park and seeing a sign that says, this is the kind of grass you should plant in your yard to be for this arid area. Sorry. Personally, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to plant plants that I think are pretty and what's going to look good for my property. Just because there's a sign saying that this is what we should plant, and to me, that's basically what you're spending $25,000 on, is a sign to say that you donated money. And I don't believe that the West Dakota Water Development District, as a state entity, should be involved in private entities in especially a period of 10 years, even though you say it's only a yearly project. $25,000 is a lot of money. The second thing I'd like to talk about is what the treated water is going to be used for. Is it only going to be used to water the park? And it's just an experiment. And until they can prove the experiment's going to work, I don't think my tax dollars should be going to that particular. And then the third thing I wanted to bring up was the rain tax. That being an owner of property within the city, but not living within the city, I don't have the right to vote on what goes on inside the city, so I can't vote against this rain tax, even though I own property in it, and they're going to charge me for it. I don't see how it would be feasible for us to spend taxpayer money and then turn around and charge the taxpayers because they have water falling out of the sky onto their property. And you have to pay us more money because you got this kind of property and the water fell on your land. And I just don't think that we should be considering taxpayer money and a state entity going into a private entity.
I'll just to clarify, I'm not sure you understand the full concept of what they're doing. But what they're doing is they're taking stormwater off the roads. I mean, it could be in the wintertime, that's collecting sediment, salt they put on the roads, and it's going through into their property, into the park, and serving as water to grow plants. And that it seeps through, and it's a sediment trap for that stuff. And if there's any extra runoff, it's going to go out, or it's going to seep through the ground, through the groundwater. And in the world that I lived in, it's called the best management practice of control to clean the water. And so that's what the concept is. So, and I'm not sure what you're talking about, the rain tax. Is that the new stormwater
Yeah.
stuff we're getting? Okay.
Yeah.
The rain tax, okay.
Yeah, you know.
And they're going to do, my understanding with the rain tax is I understand your point, but what the point of that is to generate money, because the city, and it's going to flow into what we're going to talk about next, the Rapid Creek 319 program. They need to generate money to put in controls to control sediment, because they got Rapid Creek has been determined not good for bacteria and total suspended solids. So they need to generate money to fix, put in sediment ponds and other things throughout the city to control the sediment going into the lake, to reduce that, to bring that into compliance with federal limits. So that's what the rain tax is kind of designed for. But I just wanted to pass that along to you. So,
I understand that.
information purposes. Thank you for your
I'll make
comments.
one comment, ma'am.
Thank
And
you.
that would be, I treat it as whether it's 25,000 or 25 million. I'm gonna treat it the same. It's not a petty amount.
Yeah, no.
Denise Livingston, citizen. And I have to say that I personally fully support this project for the 25,000. I think West Dakota does not have their name out there enough. I think this is a great educational opportunity to educate community members on a best management practice. I think it's also a great opportunity if this board is talking about expansion at all. This is an excellent opportunity to build your resume, to get your name out there on something that is what I think an excellent example of stewardship. I disagree with Tim as far as the $5,000. If you're looking at it just as a project and having it treat stormwater, yes, it's $5,000 might warrant it. But it's larger than that. It's an educational opportunity. It's an opportunity to put a positive mark on this community, similar to the Canyon Lake Restoration Project. I also have heartache with the legalese, the agreement. Why don't we have these service agreements or these agreements for every project that we enter into? I think a simple memorandum of understanding saying we are giving you $25,000 for the WaterWise program. We are not supporting you. West Dakota doesn't have an affiliation with the religious entity. We are supporting this program only. I don't think that we have to get tied down into the meat and bones of a legalese agreement. Just a simple something for the record showing that we are supporting the WaterWise program. And we encourage the best management practice of stewardship of our resources. And I want to give kudos to Dan for a lot of work that he put into this project of supporting a private entity. What is the on-site wastewater treatment grant? That goes to private individuals. So, so I think that it would be a wise use of West Dakota funds. Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else?
Good.
Thank you. I'm Jeanette Durlow, and I'm a taxpayer. And as a taxpayer, I would really like to see things done. Oh, I must mention to you,
I'm also a business person. As a taxpayer and a business person, I would very much like to see things done explicitly, straightforward, on paper, with goals and expected outcome. If that, and never to go into it just because you think, well, we'll just make it simple. Simple things have so many loopholes. And although we trust each other, we can't trust the whole world. Always to have things legally straight, and it will cost money, but if I have, as a taxpayer, if I have to spend money, I'd rather spend money on something that's legally true, legally standing, and maybe even productive. Just my point of view for now.
Thank you. Mayor?
Good afternoon, Larry Mann. Just by way of introduction, I have a soft spot in my heart for this organization. I served for 10 years on the Black Hills Hydrology Study Steering Committee, and so I have a long history with the group. Unfortunately, I haven't been very active the last few years. Let me just point out the statute 46A-3A-1.1, which says that the purpose of the district is to serve as a clearinghouse for water quality and supply projects. Water Development District shall promote the conservation, development, and proper management of district water resources according to district priorities, and shall serve as a district-wide clearinghouse authority for water quality and supply projects through technical, organizational, and financial assistance to prospective and existing project sponsors, and through recommending projects for inclusion in the state water plan. So just a reminder of what the district is established to do by statute.
Question for you, sir, if I may.
Sure.
From your perspective, does this program, proposed program, meet what that statute provides?
I think that's your decision to make. I have my own private
Well,
opinion.
I'm asking what you...
In my opinion, yes. I think that if you look back over the history of this organization, it's been an important collaborator in a public-private way. When I was on the steering committee, I actually represented industry. At the time, I was working for Homestead, private industry. But we provided not only in-kind, but cash to try to help accomplish the objectives of the study over the entire 10-year period. And we were commended for being a major contributor to the study. So I think you need to look at this. This isn't government only. This is a public-private collaboration. And I think you need to keep that in mind in order to accomplish our objectives, and that's to have, to conserve water, that good, clean water that people can depend upon.
Thanks, Larry.
Appreciate your thought.
Anybody else in the public? All right, we have
I'm
the,
going to recuse myself from this vote.
okay. I think where we're at right now is we got a
What I'm
lot
not
of...
gonna do is sort of my, I'm not gonna write the law and the rule on it.
We're at a point where we got a lot of input, and in my mind, I agree with Larry and with the other members that it's a good project. Fits what we do, and we just need to decide whether what the level is and what the requirements are. With that said, I think we need to move forward, and on the agreement, I think that the intent of the agreement, we'll vote on that and see what happens. But I think after the agreement, we need to come back, if it fails, we need to come back with another plan and a recommendation to move forward. And I got a suggestion for that if we get to that point, if it's not approved. So with that said, all in favor of approving this service agreement, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Let's do a roll call vote.
Sawyer,
Aye.
Rogers,
Nay.
Richard, you are abstaining? Okay. Paulson?
Aye.
Cook?
Aye.
Jasper?
Nay.
Hazenorl?
Nay.
Bashara?
Nay.
Akers?
Aye.
It is a tied vote.
Tied.
What's a fail, right?
So what do we do with the tie vote? Yeah.
Go for another round of campaigning.
Votes a fail.
Chairman, doesn't the chairman break the tie?
Chair
No, the
voted.
chairman has a
Already
vote.
voted, though.
The chairman votes. No board.
Representing the district.
The chairman shouldn't have voted.
No.
Right.
According to our policies,
Yeah, the chairman can
every
vote.
director has one vote.
Yep.
Every director has one vote.
If, I'm trying to figure out Robert rules to come back in.
Robert's rules
Excuse me,
Probably
ma'am.
fails.
probably
I'm talking to
says
the
chairman
board.
doesn't.
I know, I'm talking to the board, please. To come back in, I don't know if we rescind this, to come back and reopen for discussion to amend this contract. I think we want to move forward in some fashion, but we need to fix the contract and I decided. So,
I, Dan, I'm sorry to put you on the spot. But I think there are only certain reasons that you can abstain from voting. And you have to state your reason why you're abstaining from voting. What is your reason?
I wrote it.
Agreement.
Yeah, I
You
vote
wrote
it's
the
a valid
agreement.
reason.
I'm sorry?
I think that's a valid reason. Appears to me he has a conflict.
Okay.
If it was me, you couldn't force me to vote.
all right,
Other comment?
Chairman,
yes.
I don't mean to inject myself into your meeting, but I think at this point, if someone on your board gives notice of intent to reconsider, that keeps the action accessible to you for further deliberation.
Thank you.
For a later time?
Yeah.
For a later time, we could do it today at a later time.
You can do it at the next meeting if you choose to. But as long as you give notice and it's recorded, then you can bring it up at the next meeting, or you can bring it up later today, or whatever you want to do.
What would we do right now? Is there anybody else that wants to reconsider their vote?
If they want
Yeah.
Who's reconsider?
Good question.
Dan?
Yes.
Was he saying that I can make a motion that we rework the letter and bring it up for a vote at a later time?
You just, all you have to do is say, I give notice of intent to reconsider. That puts in a position that someone, you or anyone else at a later time in this meeting or a future meeting can move to put it on the table and discuss it.
That's a person on the prevailing side, as I understand the rules. The prevailing side, the motion fails, whether the chairman voted or not, 4-4 fails. So whoever was on the failing side can move to reconsider, as I understand the rules.
anybody can vote for reconsider.
Disagree.
Prevailing side.
Well, four and four fails, that means it failed, then we can move on to our next
Or
issue.
reconsider.
And,
Make a motion to
since
reconsider.
if 4 and 4 fails, I can go with that, and then we can go on to move on. And what I would propose for somebody to come up with a motion is that one, we work on I like Denise's idea of developing a service agreement that covers everything, so we have one in place, and if we can put stipulations in there, get one developed that we can work from. And the second thing is have a group get together again and decide on the amount of money and what we want to ask for.
Question.
Yes.
Can we do that if someone reconsiders also?
At this meeting.
Or in the future
but
also.
yes.
So,
I've never done the reconsider thing. I was just assuming if it's 4-4 is a failed vote, then we can move on.
We
I
can-
think
Sure,
you're right.
it is.
I think you're right.
but
So,
I would move to reconsider, to put this on the agenda at a future time.
okay.
Because, do I need to say why? Does it matter?
No.
My thought would be is we need to put something together to look at and review.
Agreed.
Put together.
Well,
That's why I'd like to reconsider, actually. I'm really in favor of this project, but Chairman Jasper's comments caught my attention, and I think we might want to look at that agreement.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair? Just something for your consideration. As I recall from the last meeting, the motion basically was to refer the issue to the subcommittee, am I correct, for recommendation. It seems to me that if the recommendation at this point in time is not satisfactory to everybody on the, or to a majority on the board, that you could re-refer that action to another subcommittee and then come back with action at the next meeting. It seems to me that that would be the most simple way to do it, and I do believe that that falls within the rules. Are you operating on Masons or Roberts?
We try.
I think that's where we're going.
Yeah, so, I mean, I just re-refer to committee, and I think that leaves you an option to do just about anything you want, even if you reappoint the same member.
Yeah. So are you making a motion to refer to create another committee to come up with another plan, or recap?
I think I am.
Okay. Do we got a second?
I would second that.
Open for discussion? I would volunteer to be on that committee.
I refuse, I was on it last time.
Could I make a suggestion that Director Jasper perhaps would help us?
I volunteer to not to be on.
Oh, okay.
Tim, I'll, of course, work with you and Foster and Laverne.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, further discussion from the board? Members of the public?
And just be reminded, I'm quite certain Robert's rules say only the prevailing party can make a motion to consider.
he was the board.
There was-
We didn't make a motion to reconsider.
They just moved to re-refer.
Foster moved, Cook seconded to
And we're making another motion.
send back to
Subcommittee.
committee.
Those that voted yes are on the losing side.
George, what I'm saying
true.
is, we assumed that it was a 4-4 vote that failed, and what we're doing is we're taking another motion to address it, and that's recreate another committee to come up with another plan.
So the word reconsider is no longer on the table.
Right.
Right.
All right. Thank you. Anything else from the public? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Who was that working group again?
You, Cook, and Foster.
Okay.
You spoke so loudly.
Okay. I think we're gonna come up with a good document off of that. If I can find where I lost my agenda.
Spring Creek 319.
Is the next item the 319?
Spring Creek.
Spring Creek, okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Spring Creek 319, I think at their last meeting, there was Dan had indicated he'd throw together a letter to send some comments to the county. Dan, do you have some comments on that?
No, I sent it to you.
Did that get sent to the entire? Yeah.
I
You
don't,
wanted to talk
think
about
so.
the contents of it?
Yeah, I sent you the letter.
Yes.
Okay. I didn't even bring it.
Do you remember the contents of it?
Yeah, basically, it was can't remember all the points right now, but help me with the fast on here. Using a working group to bypass law, not allowing public input, using taxpayer funds, which are, so not allowing taxpayers any input. More concerned with how much money is in the pot versus the worthiness of the project. And 5 or 6 of them. But, yeah, basically, that's what the letter basically said. I wasn't prepared to do that.
Was it the letter?
I sent it to you, because I said I wasn't gonna put words in your mouth.
Yes, and I guess my comment on it is I think everybody knows my position on the Spring Creek 319. We have pulled out funding. It's always been my recommendation that West Dakota remove itself from that group and let them move forward. We didn't move forward with that. We still had representation on that task force and committee, which there's been some, you guys have expressed your concerns about how it's being run, and that just furthers my comments to pull back at this point. And I didn't really see any positive or any ground in me signing that letter. I would actually vote against me signing that letter and send it to them. I don't care if the board decides to put together a letter and send it to the county, but I'm against it. I think we need to keep good working relationship with the county. And if we move forward with this Rapid Creek 319, we're definitely going to need their cooperation, and we're going to need their expertise and knowledge, their successes and failures with the Spring Creek to make sure that we try to get the 319, Rapid City Creek 319 project going. So those are my thoughts on the letter. I read the letter. But I'm not going to sign it. But if the board wants to sign it as a whole, we can do that and vote on that. But that is, and that's the other reason I'd like to see us pull back from the Spring Creek. That's, those are my thoughts. Sandra.
I was going to say, the big problem with that being on that is that we thought that we should have a board member on that committee. And we were denied a board member on that committee over Denise being our representation on that committee. And that's one of the reasons we pulled out of there. If we get a board member on that committee, or on that board, we'll go from there. I mean, that was, Dan volunteered to be the representative on that committee, and he was refused his placement over having Denise as our representation.
Well, let me clarify that. The county can accept or reject who we send, but they can't pick who we send. But they can accept them or they can reject them. Whereas we cannot just seat anybody we want on it, but we are the ones that send up the name to the county to accept or reject. So it's kind of goofy how it works, but that's the facts. That's how it works. The other thing is, I'm going to ask that we don't even discuss removing ourselves from the board at this time, because we are not. There was quite a discussion concerning if the task force was properly constituted. I'm no lawyer, but I play one on TV. But it's pretty clear that you cannot constitute a task force with a motion, and they did it with a motion. So we're waiting for an answer from the state's attorney, which I think will be answered at the next county commission meeting. Before we rush off and say we're not going to be in it, or we're going to be in it, or whatever, I think we should at least wait to find out if the public's going to have a right to speak, or if the public's not going to have a right to speak. Because I don't care if I sit on the board or if I sit in a peanut stand, as long as I can speak. If they're not going to allow the public to speak, then I think we need representation on that board. Now, right now, we have no representation on that board.
Are we supposed to submit something to them?
We did, twice.
And who did we select?
Me?
Yeah.
And they rejected both times.
And yet I'm looking at the minutes here for July 9th, and it indicates Denise is our representative. Is that correct? Dan?
Yeah.
So, if I'm understanding you correctly, the Penn County Commissioners decide who's our representative irrespective of who
No,
we
they
want?
either accept or
No.
reject. We send up a name or a position, they accept or reject.
Well, did we ever send Denise up
We-
as our
We
representative?
did initially on, when her contract stated that she represented us at, Spring Creek 319.
Oh, okay,
But when we rewrote the contract, we removed that.
okay.
All right.
And I-
So there's three issues on the table. One is the letter. The rest of the board didn't get that letter. Two is whether we remove ourselves from 319. And three is whether we submit another name to the county. So I'm not sure how you want to move forward on this item.
Well, again, I'm gonna recommend that we don't. Because it says here, it just says listed, on the agenda, it doesn't, talk about that, so.
Sandra?
I'll make a motion that we refer this to the next meeting.
So what are we referring?
The,
Because we've got a whole pile of minutes here.
whatever needs to be done, handled on this, that we take it up at a later time.
You want to refer the letter that Dan had, refer the three items, refer,
Well, if the
sending
chairman
it,
refuses
excuse me,
to sign it,
excuse
there's no
me, Dan,
sense in
let me finish.
continuing.
Refer the person that we sent to the county, and then refer action of removing ourselves. All three of those items.
I refer that we take no action on it, or can I make a motion that we take no action at this time?
You can, yes.
Okay, I make a motion that we take no action on this at this time.
There's a motion to take no action on the Spring Creek 319 item. Looking for a second.
One second for discussion purposes.
We have a second, open for board discussion.
Well, I can't see us taking action on a letter that we don't have in front of us.
All right.
That's number one. And number two, I certainly think we want to stay in the 319, but I certainly have questions as to why in the heck we can't have the representative we choose sitting on the task force, board, or whatever they want to call it. Why we can't
Choose our
pick who our representative. Number three, yeah, I think we want to stay on the task force. Yeah, we want to keep current on what's going on there. I think that's part of our responsibility.
We have an individual in the audience that may help you answer your second question. If he would, if he's interested in responding to that.
Did you throw that?
Hmm?
Did you throw that on me?
No.
No, he's in the audience.
Peterson's a county.
Well, I have no comment.
Okay, thank you. Well, we definitely, the entire board does not have the letter, so that is true. And
Well, yeah, it's not even on the agenda, so I didn't expect that to come up.
any further comments from board?
I have a question about that. The second one, it said that we would like to have the representative that we want on the task force, but they can reject our choice, and it sounds like that's what happened. Is that correct? So, two times. So we would need to nominate someone else if we're going to do that, right?
Yeah, but if they're not going to accept who we nominate, what do we do?
That's the reason.
Bend over backwards?
That's the reason I
Well-
thought we should pull back.
And I was going to
What
say,
can,
Excuse me, sir. That's the reason I thought we would pull back if they're not accepting who we're sending. And also some of our suggestions have not been taken on council or on the group when they voted on things, so our insight has not been taken. Sandra?
They haven't given us a reason why they won't accept the people or the person that we asked to be a representative on that board. We have no, so how do we know what, I mean, they could reject every one of us except for one, I mean, the one they want. I mean, they haven't given us a reason why they're rejecting him.
I think there's a requirement to give them. I mean, it's obvious why they're doing it, but there's
Well, I think they need to state why they won't accept the candidate we put forward.
What are you gonna get on your knees and beg them to do them? Because they're not gonna do that.
Foster?
It just seems to me that we don't really have control over that. They do.
Yes, that's correct.
That's cool. I'll bring that to the board's attention again, Mr. Chairman. That 319 project was presented to this board. It was rejected and the county picked it up. So this is of our own doing. Not us personally, but this board's doing.
No, I agree with you. We also move funding from the board too, from the project, so. That's why I keep saying we need to back away and let them do their stuff. And we move forward with what we can, so. But, any more discussion from the board?
What's the consequences of inaction on it? Does it matter? I mean, if we don't do anything, they just assume that we're not interested, or is there any difference on that?
I can't answer that.
We just
Well, I'm
basically,
gonna ask again that this all wait until the state's attorney gives the county an answer.
Yeah. It's more easy to defer.
Exactly.
Here's where we're heading.
just don't need to do anything on it right now.
Any more from the members, public?
Call a question. No,
The board does have a potentially pressing problem before them. You were represented. You, the taxpaying entity, taxpayer funded entity, were represented on July 9th by a person that supposedly no longer has a contract. I haven't seen the contract, but I have no doubt that the person told me that's not the contract is credible. So if your administrator, you're the contract person, is not legally represented at the board, and I went to that meeting, I shouldn't say that to the task force.
Excuse me, George, what contract are you talking about?
Your contract with RCAC.
Thank you.
In fact, that person introduced herself, and I guess I was probably one of the only, I think Lindell was probably at the meeting as well, so he can correct me if I'm wrong, but around the table, Denise introduced herself as representing RCAC, and quickly caught herself representing West Dakota Water Development District. She not only participated, but almost all the motions were made by Denise on your behalf. So you have a pressing problem. If the contract no longer has her in it, has RCAC in it, okay? That's a pressing problem that there needs to be some corrective action taken. Now, the other potentially pressing problem is if this group, whatever they're going to be called, their agenda on July 9th, the task force, and like Dan mentioned, that's questionable at this point. But if this body of folks meets in the next couple of weeks, are you going to allow your administrator to represent you again?
That is who is I'm understanding is representing us.
Yes, what's that?
My understanding is your contract come July 1 no longer has RCAC representing West Dakota on the Spring Creek 319 project. That's my understanding. And if that's wrong, and I'm been misled.
I got it right here. I just dug it out.
So my question to you is, what was she doing there on July 9th?
I'm sure there's other beauty clauses in there too, so.
What was she doing there representing West Dakota on July 9th? Virtually every motion it made was made by Denise Livingston. Thank you.
Sandra?
If I remember right, at the previous meeting when we were pulling our funding and decided that we would remain attending the meetings, that's all we said, is that we were going to attend the meetings. Denise was to attend the meetings. We didn't give her authorization to participate in them.
I'd have to look back on that.
Yeah, I'd have to look back too, because if I kind of remember something that we said that we still wanted to know what's going on, but they basically didn't really accept us as an entity once we pulled our funding.
Once again, what authority did she have to represent you 9 board members on July 9th? Not only represent almost all the motions, and the minutes are quite accurate about who made the motions. And participation, if I had to pick one person that dominated a conversation, it was Denise Livingston.
I found the contract. I dug it out.
Any other comments from the public? All right, hearing none, we've got a motion on the floor to defer this to next meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Man,
All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, passing.
I was going to say, make another motion that Denise does no action on that committee whatsoever. She attends the meeting, she's there to
Bring that up to board directors items. All right. Now to the Rapid Creek 319 project. What we got going with the Rapid Creek 319 project is DNR is determining that there's been impairments with THS and bacteria all the way to back to the Shannon River on Rapid Creek. And we had one company, North Water, come to us and talk to us about managing that project and running with it. And they asked us to be sponsors for them to do that. We agreed to do that, be the sponsor for the program. Had further meetings and discussions with North Water, and part of those discussions involved a lot of questions I had on the TMDL, on the 319 program, and how we move forward with this. And what we came up with is North Water sent us a proposal and was mainly developed by discussion from me to address my concerns. And that what that proposal was to do is to identify a scope of work for the project, 319 project, what it entails, an educational piece, and this will be a phase 1, phase 2, and maybe a phase 3 project, but phase 1 is a scope of work, educational process where we get DNR identifying what they did, where they sampled on the creek, their thoughts on what the problems are, and then bring in the DNR 319 people to discuss the potential fundings and what they've seen with other projects like this to correct TMDLs. And also, some of my questions is, do we have to address this TMDL? What happens if we don't do anything? Or nobody does anything. I don't know what happens if nobody does anything. And I think those are questions we need answered, and that's going to be in the first piece. Also, we're going to roll out in that first piece, if we agree to move forward with this project, North Water will develop an RFP that we send out, and this won't be a North Water project. It'll be opened up to everybody in the area to take over this project. The other piece that they'll do is they'll identify the people, partnerships that need to occur to address the 319 and potential funding sources. And with that said, they're not going to do the work free, and my suggestion is to, I think that in the proposal they shipped to us, it was $5,500 to allocate that to get this first scope an educational piece out to us in front of us so we can get our questions answered, to see if we truly do want to pursue this Rapid Creek 319. And that, in a nutshell, is what we have in front of us today. So to open up for discussion, if, I guess I'm looking for a motion to approve their proposal and a second, so we can open up for more discussion.
I'll make that motion for discussion.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, open for discussion. Dan?
Yeah, and you may have said it and I missed it. When I was going through this, the 55, they want $5,500 to bring in DENR and give us some education on where, what, when, how they determine the problem on the creek. And then number two, to bring in the 319 people to explain to us exactly how everything is going to work. If we decide to go forward with this, is that
That is,
No.
that's part C of it. Yeah. And the other projects in the scope is define the project scope, what it all entails, identify the potential supporters. C is what you talked about, educate with potential supporters with the DENR, TMDL.
So he's gonna run,
The D is secure written comments, complete intended contributions. E, work with West Dakota Board to develop an RFP as required. And F, complete 319 plan and grant application. So that's what the
Well,
5,500 gets us.
They're not bringing in DENR. We are bringing in DENR next meeting.
that's where I got confused.
Okay, so no. We, next, in September, we have DENR and the 319 people and the TMDL people are coming to give a presentation here. That's,
Well, that's the way I read this at first, and then
no,
I was only catching half of what you were saying.
sorry to interrupt. I thought there was a communication
Yeah,
gap.
no, it's a whole scope to understand what it all entails. And we're gonna get educated, so we get all of our questions answered. Because I still got a lot of questions that they couldn't answer, so. Yeah.
See if I understand. Does this then put us in a position of where the county commission is on the Spring Creek 319 project?
I think that the part that, I wasn't around when the 319 Spring Creek developed, but just based upon all the discussion I heard, what I want to do is I want to make sure we want to jump into this whole thing, the 319 project for Rapid Creek. So I got a lot of questions and I want to get educated on the scope of what it is, educated on what the TMDL is, what they sampled, what the state thinks the problem is. The scope is also going to help us identify what North Water thinks the problem is, but it's going to get that all in a package shipped to us so we have something really good to look at to say, yeah, let's do it. Or, no, this isn't looking good, let's not do it.
So if we're saying let's do it, then we're going to be the sponsor of the project?
We've already decided to be the sponsor at our last meeting. What we're doing here is getting a kickoff to identify what is all involved. And we're offering $5,500 to kick that project off. And then from there on out, I envision any money we dump into it's going to be for controls. After North Water identifies it, North Water is going to get other sponsors or other financial people involved. So,
But at this point, all we're committed is $5,500
that's what we're looking at for this proposal,
at this point.
Yeah.
Okay.
which is pretty cheap for what's listed there. So.
Well, maybe yes. Depends on all the strings that are attached.
Yes, that's true. Stanley, sorry.
You said there was other sponsors, how much are they sponsoring?
That is they're gonna identify other potential sponsors. And
So right now, we still don't have any other sponsors.
correct. And we're the sponsor for the program, and the other entities are gonna be people that contribute to correcting the problem. So, and North Water indicated what their plan is that, after we get the scope and we get us to buy off into it, is they'll go out and get those, and then they'll identify the problem and the fix, and that'll be presented to us as well.
Yeah, I was thinking that they were supposed to get the sponsors and they were supposed to then sign on to it. And now it's the other way around.
The what happened there is they wanted us to get on the state revolving fund to get money from the state. You know, a big chunk of money to move forward right now. In my mind, we don't have enough time for all that to happen and for us to make a educated decision. So I proposed this scope for them, so we get educated. So when we do go to the state, the 319 program, and get money, and we go to other people, we know exactly what we're doing. And that's what this whole scope is to do, is identify what we're doing, educate us on the process, get all the questions answered, and get the RFP written. And prepare the 319.
Mr. Chair?
It seems like to me that they're gonna be making a lot of money off of this whole project once it's going. Why aren't they putting this initial 5,500 up to get it started? You know, they're gonna be the ones, making an awful lot on this. It seems like to me like they should be doing that.
They are, and there's going to be a lot of work put into this, with modeling the entire watershed. And what they wanted to do, as I was explaining to Sandy, is they wanted us to approve getting on the state water plan right now for the October thing, and I just didn't feel we had time to do that. I felt we needed to get educated, but I felt we needed to bring the city in and to get them educated. They've had people that haven't dealt with this, bring in their county partners and whoever else we have to bring, and bring those people in so they can ask questions of the state of what we're really doing. And that was kind of the intent. Instead of jumping into it and going, saying, you know, asking for all this money, and we're not really sure what we're doing.
Well, I'm just saying, it seems like that they should be paying that to get it started. Because they're gonna be benefiting from the most of it.
Well, they're going to, if they get
They're
the
not
project.
gonna.
Whoever gets the project is going to
Putting some kind stuff in.
and we're just going to be a
Yeah,
sponsor.
it'll go out for bid after this, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. My intent is that instead of have them drag on at the point, I wanted to kickstart this and get it going, so we got educated on it, so we can make a decision if we're going to proceed with it.
I had a question, just a comment. I expect they're also putting some of their time into this as well to make it go, to make it work. So my question was, Mr. Chairman, on your tasks A through F, are those all included under phase 1? Or is that partly under phase 1 and phase 2?
It's phase
Like
one.
all phase 1?
All phase one.
So it's 2 to 12 months, just depending on how long it takes them? Is that why that's such a big range?
Yes.
Okay.
And it could happen quicker. Well, the state, to get on the 319 state program, I didn't feel we had time to do it this cycle, and correct me if I'm wrong. We need to get on August 1st, the plan, and submit.
No, it's October 1 for the 319, October 1. So it's 2 months if we want to shoot for this October. But Rapid City, when we had dialogue with Rapid City, they really felt that this October was kind of pushing it on council quite a bit. So Rapid City is our biggest, biggest supporter. I mean, they're the ones that really should have the most buy-in, so we really want them as a partner. So we want to make it amendable for them.
Sure.
So it's more than likely going to be 12 or probably 14 months.
The following cycle, yep. So then, just one other thought I had as I read this and listened to some of the questions, that I was a little bit not totally clear on the deliverable that we would receive from this. Is this going to be like a final report that will have all these things clearly, documented in that report?
That in writing this up, yes. I'm not sure we need to modify this to state we want to report it. If you declare that is no problem. Because I think you're correct, it doesn't state that we'll get a report.
Right. I was a little just unclear about what exactly the deliverable is and what time frame we're looking for. Just some question marks.
Do a friendly amendment on that to get that clear.
Friendly.
Sandy?
Excuse me, since Dan left the room to use the restroom, I think we should take a little break from anyone who has to go, or...
Let's finish up this item.
Some motion on the
Any
table.
more comments from the board? From the public?
What's the motion?
Okay, the motion on the table is to allocate $5,500 for the North Water to proceed with this project and kick off the Rapid Creek 319. It's basically to educate us, develop the scope, and and all that work is provided. I'm not sure if we make, at this point, we make the friendly amendment to add Foster's concern.
Foster, would you accept Roger's proposal of a friendly amendment, adding a financial, or adding a report, item G, report?
Sure, clarify the deliverable as a report. Yes?
Report deliverable.
All right, that's what
Let's
we have
take
on
a second too.
friendly amendment. Is a second. Okay, and we have a second. Chuck? Any further discussion on the friendly amendment from the board members, from the public? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Aye. Aye.
Who
Yeah,
was,
this is probably a good time for a break, Sandra.
I'm sorry, who
Who
opposed?
opposed? Was it
Two opposed?
Robert opposed, okay.
2 people or 1?
Who else opposed?
I did.
Sam?
Okay.
It passed.
Let's reconvene at 4 o'clock. Anybody has to take a
Sure.
quick break.
How you doing?
Stay away.
Some people may need to slip out. I'm gonna start signing.
Okay.
these.
We'll continue on as these guys do their technical work and stuff, and we'll get ready for the presentation. Next item, new business, 2015 budget. Denise?
Okay. So in your board packet, you will have the proposed 2015 budget. The budget has to be approved by and submitted to the county by October 1st. So September's meeting will be the public hearing. We have to have a public hearing and board approval to submit this up to the county. So if you have any comments, now is the time to make them. So you'll see with the memo, there are a couple of changes that were made. If you look at item 3, the technical assistance, we had money set aside this year for that. We haven't used it. I don't envision that we will, but it's going to be, so that will be removed. You won't see that. It will still be there if next year we see that we need something that would qualify as water quality environmental analysis. It's already an existing category we can bring back, but it's, to make it clean, it's not going to be on the September budget. The other thing I did is I moved the committed funds, the projects that we have committed funds for, I moved that actually into the budget. Instead of showing it along the side there, it's actually part of the budget now. You're going to see the committed funds on both the finance, the revenue side, and the appropriation side. So that 241,000 and some pennies, we have that in our bank, so we do have that funding available. But then also on the expenses side, that is money that we are going to be paying out at some point, hopefully in 2015. I will reflect a little bit better. As you see, we've already paid out the USGS stream flow gauges, and the groundwater modeling isn't in here. Let me see, what else did I want to point out? So I have notes along the side here, kind of explaining everything. I did adjust the board of directors' salary a little bit to reflect a little bit more accurate of a number. That number is based on 9 directors, 7 regular meetings, 1 special meeting. And so that amount lowered a little bit. Everything else we're kind of staying on task. If anybody has any specific questions, the CPI and the growth, I'm using last year's numbers for now. When we get to September, I get better numbers from the state, so that's going to change a little bit. And then also under number 7, under project assistance, you will see that we already have funds that are restricted for 2015. That is based off of the USGS, the groundwater modeling. for $10,000 a year for the next 4 years, and also the 2015 crystalline aquifer study is out of there. So the property tax levy that we will expect over the next year is about $210,000. That number has the potential, that's the one that will be tweaked a little bit when we get better numbers from the state for the CPI and growth.
Thank you. Any comments from the directors? Yeah.
The asterisk on property tax levy asterisk, but I can't find it.
Oh, I'm sorry, that asterisk is the according to South Dakota Department of Revenue, the one in red, that is the CPI and growth. I'm sorry,
So that's an asterisk.
that's the asterisk. I'm sorry, that got deleted somehow.
Other board members? And what's the miscellaneous tax revenues, where would that come from?
Miscellaneous tax revenues is penalties and interest, just kind of done. It's not stuff that is going to be in the current tax, and it's not stuff that we really want to like bank on. But yeah, we get kind of,
Somebody likes us and gives us some.
I can,
Any other further questions from the director?
Is this $2,000 travel that's just thrown in there just in case? Or is that
no, the travel is your mileage.
all our money?
Mm-hmm.
We need a motion to approve these.
No, you'll want to approve this in September. So like I said, if you have any comments or concerns, please bring them up now, because the numbers are going to be slightly adjusted, just because I'll have a little bit better end-of-year numbers and the numbers from the state. But this will need to be approved after the public hearing in September. Or it has to be approved before October. So if it's not approved at our September meeting, we have to have a special meeting between September 17th and October 1st. So I'm begging you, problems, address them now.
Any comments from the public? Okay, so when you say now, do you mean like within the next couple of weeks? Next couple of minutes?
Probably next couple minutes. That's
Okay.
that's kind
I
of
just wanted to
the,
clarify that. So,
yeah, I mean, now would be a good time to have the discussion out here so it can be ready for public's viewing for their hearing. So that because after the public hearing, you're probably not going to want to change it. You're going to, because, I mean, the public is going to look at it at the public hearing. So this is the time and place.
all right, since we don't need any action, we can move on unless going. All right, next item is policy change, Director Richter.
Yeah, at the last meeting, I brought up,
This delivered, whole thing, yes.
difficulties in getting,
Okay, we need to just
letterhead,
check.
stationery. So I just draft policy letter, which you got in front of me. That's the draft. You want to make any comments or questions? This is the time to do it, I guess.
Let me seek a motion to approve, which will open up the comment.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Jasper, seconded by Orland. Open for director's comments.
Looks good to me.
I have no problem. Any public comments?
We'll see.
All right, thank you. Hearing none from the directors or the public, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Dan, thank you for putting that together. Dan. Next item is the WDWDD funding request. WDWDD funding request.
So I talked with Dr. Kunza, and she was unable to be here today. She would have made last week's meeting, but not this week. She'll be here in September. So, but basically, she wanted this in the board packet so that you could at least have a look at it today. She is asking for some funding to help fund part of the study. I believe this is the biological aspect of it, studying fish stomach contents and fun stuff like that, if I'm correct. And like I said, she'll be here in September to present this. But this is to help fund one of a student's research for, it'll be this spring semester of 2015.
I don't think we need to take any action on it today, but do any of the directors have questions that we can relay back to Dr. Kunza?
Yeah, I'd like to know if that student we're gonna support is gonna stay in Pennington County or the Black Hills.
The research will. I can get you contact information for Lisa if you want to talk to her.
That would be
If
fine.
you want to ask her any questions, I can do that for you. Okay?
Any further other questions? It's like an interesting study. It's to me, it's a little bit different approach. Dr. Kunz, based upon the last discussion had about, she's been studying WDWDD at different locations throughout the United States and one other location internationally. And I think her approach is to try to identify what they need and what needs them, and try to get a better understanding of what's going on there. I know our intent and some of our constituents' intent is to try to find something to eliminate it, but I think you need to start with the fundamentals and basics, and I think that's what she's doing. But she can further explain that when she comes. All right, boom, 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 we're cruising. Go down to overview of USGS gauging stations. Joyce Williamson. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. All right, so I'm going to talk about stream flow gauging stations. And basically, why is stream gauging important? A lot of decisions are based upon the data that comes from the stream flow gauging stations, and that can be from anywhere with your state, local, federal managers, down to recreational users. It's a very broad group of people who use the data. And I think what's kind of important there is that the use of that data is not only unique to the site, but to the person that's using it. So, for example, in Rapid City, there are a number of gauges that are used primarily for flood warning. And in fact, all of our gauges that have stage and flow are often used for that purpose, to kind of get an idea of the water that's coming their direction, how high it is right now, within a city, within the area, etc. The flooding south of Sioux Falls recently, our Akron gauge was watched very closely because of the concern for Sioux City, Iowa, not for South Dakota necessarily, but so flood warning is a big one. Water supply management. The Bureau of Rec uses the gauges, the Corps of Engineers uses the gauges, City of Rapid City, you know, we just heard about how high Pactola is, so that's one of those kind of water management issues, is how much can we release, how much water is coming in. Water rights during droughts, that's a pretty big deal. The gauges are used a lot then for the exact opposite reason. They're paying attention to how low flows are so that they know whether those primary water right holders get their allotment, whether or not they need to turn off other users. Long-term trends, I'll talk a little bit more about that. Peak stream flows, so actually the highest flows recorded at a site become very important. I'll talk a little more about that. In our area, one of the things that we've tried a great deal about is the recharge to the aquifers and that groundwater surface water interaction. You just talked a lot, had discussion about the 319 projects, and that involves a lot of water quality sampling. So much of the work the state does, and actually much of the work that they do as part of the TMDL studies, they will collect samples at a USGS stream flow gauging site so that they also have discharge, and then they can calculate the loads that are happening. One of the other things that, you know, the reality is other people do collect some discharge data, so why USGS? And that really comes down to the long-term data, consistent methods across the nation. And so then you have this comparable data, not only from year to year, but across boundaries and watersheds and basins. You don't, you know, you can know that if you have numbers here that a USGS gauging station, you compare them to one from another. One of the groups who doesn't support our gauging stations other than vocally is the National Weather Service. And a lot of times we will see these on television, we may reference them ourselves, but it's the forecast that the National Weather Service puts out anytime there's flooding in an area. There wasn't any in South Dakota last week when I was grabbing this graph, so this one is from Iowa. But the National Weather Service actually uses our discharge data to generate their forecasts. They only have forecast sites at USGS gauging stations. There are a few states where there are some state-run gauging stations that they can get data from, but they're predominantly USGS, and they put their little acknowledgement to us in the very bottom corner. For trends and statistics, the site that I threw up here is, of course, Rhodes Fork near Rochford. So this is a spring-fed site. We really don't expect a lot of variation from it. And so I just threw up 2 years that were 10 years apart and are dramatically different. The blue line is the actual discharge for the year. And that kind of goldish line is the long-term average. So as we can see, this year we're running anywhere from 1 to 2 CFS above normal. Back in 2004, it was 1 to 1.5 below normal. So those are kind of some of the things that those long-term statistics help us with is, you know, are we seeing changes that really help feed then some of those studies of, you know, are we seeing a trend of wetter, higher flows? Are we, you know, in an extended drought, what impact is that going to have on our water sources? And then peak flow. This one is Castle Creek above Deerfield, another one of the gauges that you guys support. And the peak flow data is often used for the recurrence interval studies. So if you want to know, the old term is the 100-year event, then this is the data that's used to generate those statistics. And of course, that drives the sizes of bridges and culverts, protection that need to be put in place with, you know, to establish who's within and outside of a 100-year flood. All those sorts of things are based on these numbers. And I guess the point that I also wanted to make with this graph is the importance of a long-term record. This site has been in place since 1948, so it has a very extended record. It's fabulous. But if it had only been operated from 1970 to 1990, the entire world would have thought that 200 CFS was all you'd ever see out of this basin. And the reality is that it was over 1,100. So, you know, and in our recent years, we've seen this kind of unusual rise, which during the 90s, we all know how wet it was here. We've seen a couple of recent. And so, you know, there may be some questions too about, are we seeing a different trend in parts of the Black Hills where there's higher flows?
Is this what they use for like DOT and the
Yes.
contractors use for the but it's
Yep.
not for design, engineering design structures?
Yep.
Just approve this today, so.
The other thing that's important, I think, about the USGS data is that it's available to absolutely everybody. It is out on the web. There's the real-time stuff, so you can see everything from within the last hour to as far back as the gauge was in operation. And that's available for anyone to use. Whether it's me as a scientist, whether it's students at the School of Mines, which we get a lot of requests from them on how to find our data, to the guy that wants to kayak down the river. It can be used by absolutely anyone. We've also developed a few additional tools that are helpful for people. Water Alert lets you actually, you can go in and pick your gauge and say you're concerned about flooding near your home. You can pick a gauge that's nearby, and you can get a text message or an email once the gauge height gets to a certain level, which may be a concern for you. For scientists, if they're out and they're needing to catch samples with low flow or high flow conditions, they can set an alert so that they can get that information. Water Watch is one that has more information, various graphs and statistics that are specifically helpful for if we're in flooding, but also during droughts. So there's some low flow statistics, there's for the flooding, it compares the current stage, the historic peaks, that kind of stuff. Water Now is another one that's meant for smartphones. And then because there are so many people who are writing applications for smartphones, we provide links to a lot of that stuff too, because not everybody's going to want the stuff the USGS wrote. They may want something, and actually I don't use the USGS one. I like one of the others better. Excuse me. This is our network. The colors aren't showing the greatest. So the ones along the Missouri River and a few over in eastern South Dakota are stage-only sites. The reason the Missouri River is stage-only is the flow is controlled by the dams, so there's really no reason to know discharge because the Corps knows exactly what they're kicking out. The red ones are our peak flow sites, so those are ones that we're only concerned about a peak flow. They're not real-time or on the web. They're published annually. But because they're a relatively inexpensive piece of data to collect, they're not real-time or anything. But we do go to all those sites several times a year. We measure the flow and then we publish a peak. The turquoise ones are flood warning. So you can see the grouping around Rapid City, Aberdeen, Watertown, and Sioux Falls also have flood warning sites. And then the blue ones are our more traditional full-time stream flow gauging. And there should be a map of those in your handout, I think. For cooperators, there's a wide variety. Whether it's federal, I mean, I've mentioned the interest of the Bureau of Rec and the Corps of Engineers of our data, so of course they help fund those. There's also almost every tribe in the state funds a gauge or 5. The state, of course, helps fund some of the gauges, and some of the ones on the border, the state of Wyoming funds. Counties, of course, cities, and then, of course, there's irrigation districts and water conservation districts.
You don't have any cooperation with League Deputy Sanitary District? Didn't they take over the home state, right?
Yes, and they discontinued that gauge.
And they discontinued the gauge.
So there's a wide variety. And we're always open to new cooperators, and of course, there are some gauges that are actually funded by multiple people because there's multiple interests. So some of the gauges in Rapid City are funded by the city of Rapid City, some with some USGS dollars, and then some by Corps of Engineer. So it's a whole combination because that's where the interests come from predominantly. Any questions?
Before we see any questions, I want to thank you for coming. We had one question when we were going through funding a few meetings back, the importance. We had some people from the audience say a few things, but this was a good presentation to see what the purpose is, and I really appreciate that. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Other questions? All right, thank you very much.
So can I, on the budget, I guess I would ask that you'd consider continuing funding the 2 gauges. Would you want me to get you that number today, next week?
If you can get it to me before, as soon as possible, that'd be great. And I
Okay.
But it will also go on our September
Absolutely, for discussion.
for
I understand
approval.
I have a question. After seeing all that and hearing everything that you got going, if you had one highest priority or most pressing need out there for gauges, what would it be?
I guess I'm not exactly sure what you're
I
asking.
mean, we're all covered here, or is there something that we could do to improve this, or what?
Oh,
You know,
no, I think, the network, even with, the reality is we've all seen budgets are tight, I guess is the easiest way to put that.
Well, we've had a drop.
Federal, state, local, across the nation, everything is tight. And within South Dakota, the gauging network has stayed pretty constant for a number of years. Of recent, we're seeing a few more gauges being added. Those new ones have been traditionally on the reservations. If you remember from the map, there's gaps.
Yep.
And the big open places, of course, where there aren't very many people.
Right.
And the reservations. And so we are seeing some new gauges being added on reservations. But generally speaking, the network is pretty consistent and it's been pretty stable. So we've been really lucky in that sense.
Thanks.
And West Dakota's funded 2 gauges for how long? We've funded the Castle Creek and
Rochford?
Rochford, and I think that started, Dan maybe will know this better than me, I think back during the Black Hills hydrology study is when the funding for
Rogues
those.
Fork gauge has been funded by West Dakota for the entirety of its period of record, which I think starts in 1982, I would
Okay.
guess, near the inception of West Dakota. I think Castle Creek had been funded under other mechanisms before, and then picked up because of the loss of a cooperating agency.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just, a note for the record, Vern Cook had to leave at 4:22.
I got it.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is Regional Groundwater Flow Model Report, Dan Driscoll, USGS.
A couple you might have to share here. I've given out just a couple too many in my handouts there at Custer County this morning, but Denise is familiar with this. Anyhow, she won't need one. She's seen this as she has gone with me to some of these meetings. As you recall, the West Dakota voted to be the project sponsor for taking our proposed groundwater modeling project to DENR, the state water plan for funding under the swarms mechanism. The table that I'm showing you is kind of an important piece of information for the discussions we've been having with basically the counties throughout the Black Hills area and a couple of the larger communities. I'm calling it a hypothetical annual funding scenario. I guess you're all familiar with the project we've talked about. I don't need to cover that. I'm just going to give you a little status on the update of where things are at. We need to have our application submitted by the end of September, and to do that we primarily have to have our funding package in place. The funding need in round numbers is about $750,000 that remains. We've got a bit of a start on the project. I try to give these entities kind of a starting point on what might they contribute. It's basically up to them what to contribute, and
what I've penciled out at a full funding level, it's essentially $10,000 for most counties. Basically Pennington County with West Dakota and the Rapid City is a $20,000 increment. Spearfish might consider contributing above and beyond the Lawrence County amount. And I guess I had penciled it out that way in that Spearfish has had a track record of one of the larger communities and typically has been quite interested in the environmental issues, the water resource issues. So in round numbers, when you add up those amounts, if that's would be where they would come in, would be $75,000 per year at the local level. I suspect our request to the state water plan would be for dollar match. That was the example under the Black Hills hydrology study, and I think would be a reasonable expectation. USGS is committed to at least $1 of federal match for every $2 of state and local match. So, hypothetically, this could add up to $225,000 per year. So under basically 3 years worth at that level would be $675,000. 4 years would more than cover it. We're expecting the likelihood that we'll see contributions. We've seen them from the National Park Service. I think when we apply, we'll want to apply this is what it take from the state and local level, and anything that comes in above and beyond that would basically reduce the costs to the others. So I guess a quick rundown of where we're at to date, starting basically up north in Butte County. It's really quite amazing that I emailed this up to a fella in the city engineer in Belfouche. I've never met him. He's fairly new there, Ryan Cavan, K-A-V-A-N. I've since met him when I went up to meet with Butte County, but to my amazement, within a time frame of about a week to 10 days, he had taken this to his Public Works Committee, on to City Council, and they approved a firm commitment of $5,000 right out of the box, and they're the only ones really to do that, with the exception of the West Dakota commitment, and then Rapid City has been working with us. We count their contribution as firm. So, that's a pretty good starting point. My meeting with Butte County, they voted to make a statement of interest. Basically they're penciling in a funding amount to consider as part of their budget process, and all the counties, by the way, plan to have their budgets firm by essentially mid-September. So I think we'll have the information we need there. In general, everybody's got seemingly pretty strong support for this idea, and the only question seems to be to what extent might they be able to find the tax dollars. How painful will that be? Lawrence County made a statement of interest. They were actually the first county that we went to. And Spearfish actually went to 2 different committees. One was the Public Works and one was the Legal and Finance, and they were reluctant to act on a statement of interest because it was 2 different committees, but that actually engages all of their council people, so they've all heard about it, and they do seem receptive. Meade County, their meeting is Wednesday of next week. Did talk with Sturgis. They have a municipal utility board that would be possibly a player, and they stopped short of making a statement of interest, but I guess Meade County might be the toughest sell. Has kind of been the historic record if you look back at the Black Hills hydrology study. So this morning I was up with the Custer County Commission. So I didn't bother to update this. This is the same one I'd handed out. They did make a statement of interest and plan to consider it as part of their budget process. Fall River County, one of the very small counties, you'd expect perhaps more difficulty there than most places, but they're looking at this proposed Dewey Burdock uranium mine and all the questions going about where do you get accurate water information there? How about these proposed withdrawals from the Madison? So they've got a little different mindset than maybe I would have expected before. Both the city of Hot Springs and the county then have made statements of interest and talk as if they want to talk to each other about teaming up on whatever level of commitment between them. So I guess the quick summary would be that Right now, I'm, cautiously optimistic that we'll see a critical mass. I was asked in Custer County today, do we need everybody on board? I don't think we need everybody. I think we need to have enough that we can say, well, here's a viable project. So be that, I would consider $70,000 a year viable, 60,000, if all we've got is Pennington County, City, Rapid City, it won't go. There needs to be a regional flavor. But I think we're seeing a lot of support, and I'm pretty optimistic that we'll have funding support. So there's a quick overview. Any questions?
This is year 3? This will be year 3?
Well, we have actually worked for several years, starting initially with the National Park Service and the City of Rapid City. It's probably going to take 4 years at a full funding level, to reach the $750,000 that remains. I guess Denise and I talked a little bit the other day that, now that we're getting pretty close to, I think seeing the level of commitment we need, we will talk with the people in the DENR program about when would the cash flow actually occur if this happens. But it's, basically, it probably would be no later from the state end of things than July 1, the start of the next fiscal year. And I'm not sure if it would or would not be earlier, but I think we're probably looking at, more or less.
2015 is the 3rd year of this project?
No, are you referring to our involvement?
Yes.
2nd year.
2nd.
Mm-hmm.
To date, there has been, I think, just one, the first funding commitment had been made. I think there would be another request, was part of your proposed budget for the upcoming year. So that would be your 2nd year of contribution. And there have been, we started a little bit early again with National Park Service, Forest Service, and City of Rapid City support.
Any more questions from the public? Directors? Dan, thanks for the update. Appreciate it. Denise, manager's report?
The manager's report is in your board packet. Just lists basically the meetings. There isn't anything that I necessarily need to point out. Tim already mentioned our success with the Rapid City East water expansion project and the state's very charitable loan grant award. And then just, one thing just to be correct on the Canyon Lake project, the last meeting, July 21, I did not make the Rapid City Common Council meeting. I had a church conflict and did not make that one. So just want to be accurate in that. So, and I also, in my manager's report, wanted to give special thanks to Mayor Quaker and CTEC Engineering on the East Rapid City expansion. A lot of work went into that project, and it's a very successful project. It's like Tim had said, it's really helping a lot of people out there in West Dakota's water development district. So, and I'll entertain any questions if there are any specific questions. But as Dan mentioned, I attended meetings with him and also meetings on the Rapid Creek 319 program as well. Oh, and one other thing I just wanted to mention, you'll see minutes from the last Black Hills Regional Multiple Use Coalition meeting, and I will be attending this meeting. This is held on the 4th Friday of the month up in Spearfish, but I'll be attending this meeting with Dr. Andrew Long from USGS to garner their support for the groundwater flow model as well. So that is all I have.
Questions from the director for the public? All right, hearing none, we'll move on. Items from the directors. Dan had brought up one with the policy on travel. When I was developing our policies and procedures and bylaws, extracting those, I ran across one that was sitting out there that addressed this. So I guess if it's the board's desire, we can drag that out. And what the policy basically did is stated that if the board, the directors approve somebody like, somebody's going to another meeting, that they get paid for it, but it would have to be upon approval of the directors. And then it would be the same reimbursement policy on that. And I can drag that out and bring it out and present it at the next meeting if that's the board's, the director's wish. So, another discussion.
I have the policy here.
Well, the only problem I had is, we were paying Laverne every time we go to this meeting, and we never even, I was on the board for like eight months before I even knew that, it's my fault for not looking, but I wasn't, I thought it was travel, and I didn't realize he was charging us for going to a meeting. And as far as I knew, the board had never approved that.
Yeah, I'm sure if they do. There's a policy we get drafted out there that was not included, that we can include and present to the board. And I'll throw that together. It's sitting out there and he's got to touch it up for us. So if that's the desire to address that one, Dan, I do that.
Yes, I would like to have that on the agenda.
Okay.
And I'd also like to have the paper on the agenda.
Excuse me?
The newspapers?
Okay, that's right, newspaper. We'll have the, if you want to know.
The travel policy
I'll do the travel policy and then.
and
we'll
the
address
newspaper.
Or put that on the agenda for next
Okay.
meeting.
And just point of clarification, I send the draft agenda out 2 weeks before the meeting, so if there's something on there that I may have missed, please, please, please let me know. 'Cause
No,
it can.
I was listening to the tapes, and I was listening, I got back to January trying to follow through on what was going on, and
Okay.
that's when that popped up. That was directed to put on the agenda.
Okay.
And I need a little assistance on, as we move forward with the Trinity Park idea. I got a pretty good idea how to throw together that service agreement, and I'm gonna extract information from other districts and other stuff, contracts, a generic contract that we can add stipulations and stuff to, but have a generic, with certain protections in there, indemnifications and all that fun stuff in there. But with Trinity Park, I'm not sure if this is okay to do, but I wanted to get a straw poll from the directors on the amount. We talked about 25 and 5. And does anybody, I don't know if I can get a straw poll from everybody, just their feelings on that, so we don't have a long discussion on it next time. Maybe we'll start over with you.
I'll start. I think that's a very important project, and I think it's right in the heart of downtown Rapid City. It's high profile. A lot of people see it, and I like having West Dakota's name associated with it. It's good PR, I think. Kind of like the West River campus that we help with the state game fish parks with. That was a very good project, and Canyon Lake is another one. So I'm in favor of this, and I'd like to go with the original amount, $25,000.
Well, if we're gonna go with it, I'll bet, like I said, it's a good science project. Any amount, the people that I've talked to that live around me and other places in the city that people have talked about it, go zero amount. I say I'd go with your 5,000 if I had my choice.
I think for the first year, we stick with it, see, everything's gotta have a starting point, and if we're gonna do it,
Stick with what?
we can adjust it later, that's, go with it.
So you're saying 25?
Yeah,
Okay.
for the first year, yeah.
Chuck?
25,000 for 1 year, I think is just ludicrous. When we were talking about a long term, I didn't have a problem with 25, depending on how it was handled.
If we went unlimited use for the public at 25,000, that's how I'm envisioning writing the service agreement, so.
Yeah, I just don't see that as being appropriate, no.
You got a value you're thinking of?
Yeah, I think that's just way, way unreasonable.
Oh,
5, 10, 15, 20, 0?
5, maybe.
yeah, I hear what you're saying there too, and if Mr. Chair, is it okay if I make a comment?
Sure.
And I guess my thought was the 25,000 is the only donation that we've agreed to and probably will give them. It's a one-time thing. We're not going to do 25,000 a year or anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My thought is it's $25,000 for the life of the project.
period,
And
yeah.
we get
Right.
indemnifications. for
Okay,
everything.
just wanted to make sure from,
We are going to address any church-state thing issue and cover us all, so that's my thought on it. So I'm not sure if you're okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, are we talking about doing this for 1 year? Are we talking about doing it for the life of the project? And what is the life of the project? You know, like I said in the very beginning, if I'm gonna make a contribution, I want it to be for a long period of time.
I agree.
Yeah, 25 years? Nope, not a problem.
Okay?
At least 10.
And I can talk to that in there, so, no, thanks.
You know, it's public money we're putting into it, that we're responsible for.
Nope, I agree. Steve?
Well, I agree, I think it's a great project, a great opportunity for us to get out there and as part of our mission is to promote new ideas and new things, and I think this is the way to do that, and I agree, it needs to be a long-term project. As long as it's long-term, I think 25 is appropriate. If it's gonna be an every year kind of a thing, then I don't know, but 25 for a long period, I would vote for.
Okay, sounds good. Well,
Yeah, I would agree with Steve. I think the 25, as long as it's over a long-term period, don't want to look at it annually.
No.
Yeah. All right, sounds good. Dan?
I abstain.
Excuse me?
I abstain. No problem.
All right. Okay, thank you. That's kind of what I wanted to get an idea of where we were at, because I didn't want to come back with something and we spent another half an hour on it. So it gave me a good idea of where to go. I appreciate that. Items for other directors?
Yes, do we have a lab for our Dakota Water Watch project?
A bacteria lab?
Yes.
Only the one in Hill City.
Pardon?
I thought we had one in Piedmont, but we only have the one in Hill City.
And that is,
I will send you her information.
okay.
Can I piggyback on that, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
I would like to, I'd like to see that thing move to, and they've kind of jumped on board on it. If we're gonna leave it up in Hill City, I'd like to see that thing move to the ambulance fire department. They're there 24 hours, the guy can take a sample in there anytime, 24 hours. I've tried to take samples to her, she's on vacation, she's at the library doing something,
If they're willing, we can set up another lab
well.
there, if there's somebody
If we're
willing to
gonna
do
in
it.
Hill City, you know, why don't we just put that lab, why don't we just move that lab to?
We can't move the lab unless we have a volunteer, and I don't think, and it doesn't matter, we have somebody doing the lab if we have 2 or 3 or 4 volunteers in Hill City that want to do a bacteria lab, that's fine. But do you have somebody at the fire department that's willing to do the project?
Yeah, they indicated that they're gonna be, they're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and a lot of times they're bored, and they would be interested in doing something like that.
Okay.
Now, they gotta go before their board to get okay, because they're paid employees. So this would be above and beyond, and they'd have to make sure that that they're letting the board know that they're doing this pro bono.
Right.
So, I mean, it's not something that we can just pick up her stuff and move it over and stick it in there.
No, we're not going to move her stuff. We have another lab that we can put up there, but just have them contact
So
me.
we don't have anyplace else but Hill City? So nobody's doing Rapid Creek at all?
Not the bacteria, no.
We got another.
I've
lab.
got to
We
get
can
talk.
concentrate on getting somebody in Rapid City.
Makes sense.
Mhm.
That's my
Director, Dan and Chuck, would you like Denise to pursue fire department in Hill City and then also pursue something in Rapid City?
I would certainly encourage it, yes.
Well, we do it on a volunteer basis, so if you have somebody at the fire department, have them contact me. I can't go out there and make people volunteer.
It's in the same building.
Okay.
And Denise, I forgot the address of the prospectors, gold prospectors up in Hot Springs that were interested in doing testing for us.
I have
Mike,
that?
I'll get you Mike's name,
Oh,
phone
okay.
number, the prospecting club.
Okay. Yeah. But if anybody knows anyone that would be willing to do a bacteria lab, let me know. I thought we had somebody lined up in Piedmont and never heard back from them, so.
I'll check with Energy Labs to see if they want to do a little pro bono stuff, or little stuff to, if they would set up something off the site. So I'll check with them. So,
Okay. Thank you.
all right. Anybody, other items from directors?
Yeah, I got one last one. I want a clarification on Spring Creek. Supposed to have another meeting in August. Are we gonna be in attendance or are we not?
That is a good question, and I'm glad you brought that up. That was on the back side of my right side of the lobe. I'm thinking, and I'm assuming, and I'm not sure, I got to do research to determine why that Denise is on that advisory committee. I'm assuming, and I got to go back and look at the minutes or whatever. I'm assuming she's on it because we wanted representation, but they didn't approve you, so we wanted somebody on there. And I don't know for the life of me if we voted for that or we just decided to go with it. But whatever it is, this board wanted representation on that, and that's how we got it. So
Okay.
I don't know where to go with it.
I can tell you exactly how that went down.
I can do,
I was standing up there giving the reasons why, and Holly, their manager, came running up and told me that the previous board had put Denise on the 319 project in the contract. She knew the contract better than I did.
May I comment?
Yes.
I'll try to clarify. So the situation was that when West Dakota was under Black Hills Council, the service agreement identified there was a bullet point that Black Hills Council or their representative would represent West Dakota at meetings, and it specified the Spring Creek 319. When RCAC took it over, we took parts of that agreement, we cleaned up the contract, we did the deliverables. I believe we worked with Orland on that and trying to draft, because we had nothing. And we were able to manage to get a contract from Black Hills Council. We were starting from nothing. We needed task orders in order to keep West Dakota going. So we mimicked a lot of the tasks that were in there and some other identified tasks from Orland and Foster at that time. That's how this agreement came into place. I was in California. Dan was at a meeting of Pennington County Commissioners, and it was at that meeting, and I watched it on video, where Pennington County said they wanted a list of all of the people involved with the 319, all of the entities involved. They have, I think it's, and I might be wrong here on my numbers, forgive me, but they have 3 homeowners and 9 entities, such as USGS, such as the Forest Service Parks Department, West Dakota Water. All of these entities were identified. Pennington County asked for all of these entities to submit their name to Pennington County. I submitted my name with a copy of the contract that was already signed. This was in February of 2013, and based on that, the county commission made the determination that I would be West Dakota's representation on that board. I did that based off of seeing the county commission meeting online. Dan was at the county commission meeting.
That's when I brought up the vote.
But Dan never submitted his name to the county commission at that time. And I never thought of anything of it, because because it was already in the contract. That is what Pennington County Commission.
Permission from the board yet.
The board, West Dakota signed the contract.
Dan, please let her finish.
So West Dakota signed the contract. It was in the contract.
I agree.
Black Hills Council had represented West Dakota on the board. I had nothing. That is what I charged forth with. Now, also from my understanding, and I'm not speaking for county commission, but they have 3 homeowners. Everyone else that they have on that board is a professional, environmental professional of some sort. So I'm guessing that they want me on there for my degree more so than West Dakota's representation. I'm not poo-pooing West Dakota or the board's representation. I'm saying that I have an educational or environmental background that lends a certain caliber of expertise to the board.
Thanks for the explanation, that helps. Dan, did you have something more to add?
No, I'm not gonna spit some contest out here.
I would just also like to say on my own behalf that I am between a rock and a hard place. I am on that board, and while I'm on that board, and whether I'm representing RCAC or West Dakota, I am going to act like I'm a member of that board, and I'm going to act and make recommendations or make motions because I am an acting member of that board. And I apologize if that's wrong. But I also am getting a lot of heat from being on that board from West Dakota. So at this time, fine, remove me from the board. I'm okay with that. If you do not want me to represent West Dakota, I'm okay with that. But as long as I'm not removed by West Dakota, and I'm recognized by Pennington County as being on that board for West Dakota, I'm going to act in best faith on that board.
Thanks for your comments.
I got a quick, are you representing RCDC and West Dakota?
No,
Just one of them?
just West Dakota.
So I'm at the place where, and I can't remember if we submitted Dan's name and the county didn't approve it, and we wanted representation, so we got Denise on there, so the board's got to decide if we want Denise on there,
Right.
or if we want to pull her off, and if we need to submit somebody else to it that they'll accept. So I'm okay for whatever direction we take, but my direction is to remove back, actually, so. Any other comments?
Yeah, and I would just sort of follow up on what you said there. I agree with that. There's been a lot of things that have happened there. Some probably not so great, it sounds like, or treated, appropriately. But we're starting a new one here in Rapid Creek now. We got other more important things to think about, I think, than to spend a lot of time on one that's that far along. And I think we just need to decide what we want to do here with respect to Denise or whoever we're going to send to get, approved or not. And I would like to thank Denise for all the time and effort she put forth on that to attend those meetings and represent us. So.
Comments from other directors?
Well, I think it goes a little further than that. In terms of, I guess, looking at, here, we have Denise also representing us on the Multiple Use Coalition board. So I guess, is she going to represent us on more than just the 319? That's a question we need to ask ourselves. Is she going to be representing us in more than just one area? And then, of course, we also, earlier, we had Sandra volunteering. She was going to represent us on the, the RCAC?
RC&D.
Membership. I guess we need to, as a board, decide how we're going to have people represent us at different organizations. I don't know that we have a policy that addresses that. I think that's something we need to take up at the next meeting.
We do have a policy.
So that we do have a policy addressing that, because it seems that we now have
Yeah, I was going
a
to say.
question addressing that needs to be addressed. Whether Denise has done something improper now in the past isn't the question anymore. It's how do we handle things in the future? I think we need to resolve that.
Let's do a two-step thing there to resolve the 319 Spring Creek Task Force item. I think somebody needs to make a motion to either ask Denise remain on that to represent us, or to remove her and suggest a board member, and getting a willing board member to attend, or just remove altogether. So I think that's where we're at. And then your second idea is, I think it's already somewhat in place that we identify people to address stuff, and whether we do motions on that.
Well, I think the 319 one has already been addressed because we as a board either did it as a resolution or a motion to have the director from that area of the Spring Creek to represent us in that, I don't know whether to call it advisory committee or task force. I'm not sure how they identify themselves anymore. And so we've already expressed our desire there, and so I don't think we need to do anything more there.
So
What we can do is we can send a letter to the Pennington County Commissioners asking them how they want to address why they haven't honored our wishes. In fact, I'll make that a motion, see if they'll respond.
So are you saying if we sent our district person request there, they denied it, that to me tells me we should just be totally removed if they deny us?
Sorry, I didn't understand your question.
We made a request for Dan to be on the task force, they denied it.
Well, we
That
didn't
tells
name
me-
Dan specifically, we named
The
the
director.
director for
That's
that
right,
area.
the director of that area, they refused it, so that tells us they didn't want us there. So that's what I'm saying, we need to remove ourselves. I don't know what else you want to do. We
Well,
can
ask
send as
them-
many letters as you want, but if they
Well,
don't, if they
ask
don't
them
want
how
us,
they
that's.
how they want to respond to our request. You know, they don't want us on the board, I guess, or advisory committee, or task force, they should tell us why not, and we'll respond accordingly.
I'd be willing to send that letter. So,
I'd like
Make a
to know the
motion, we
reasoning.
draft a letter and send it.
okay. There's a motion on the floor to send a letter to the county commission asking, you be a little bit more specific,
Yeah.
why director,
Why they won't accept Director Two as our representative.
representative. And that's as simple as that.
Simple as that.
Okay. Motion on the floor.
I'll second it.
Second, open for discussion.
Yeah, I think we need to know the reason why they won't accept our Director Two as our representation. Because then it puts into question even if we put forth a different director, well, they're not gonna accept any of our directors?
Well, it puts us in the position of.
That's what I want to know.
Of the man, if anyone ever read the short story by James Thurber about the, what is it called, the bowerbird? Bowerbird's a bird, it's down in Australia, where the male builds the bower, trying to attack the female, and he goes through this whole routine, and the female, not good enough, gotta do something better. Anyway, I'll leave it up to you to read the story. And that's the kind of position I think we're in. What do we do to appease them?
You want to direct that letter for my signature, or just,
Do it for the chairman's signature, yes.
okay, and, I'll do it exactly as you asked. It'll be basically a one-sentence thing, just requesting that.
Yes.
And that's my comment, so.
Yes.
Nothing more.
Nothing more, nothing
Any further
less.
discussion from the board or directors? From the public? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, in the meantime, do we want to send Denise to the next meeting? I think that needs to be addressed as well. I think that question.
Like I said before, I don't care if I'm in the peanut section or if I'm at the table, I don't care.
I can't hear you, Dan.
I said, I don't care if I'm in the peanut section or if I'm at the table, but if they're not gonna give the public a voice, then the only way we have a voice is if we're at the table.
And right now Denise is at the table, and that's my question. Do you want to send
Well,
Denise to the meeting?
Policy number 6 says, if a director or contractor is representing the West Dakota Water Development District at a meeting or similar function, they will represent the board based upon decisions and policies made by the board. If they voice their opinion, they must distinguish that this representation is not a position or a decision of the board, but their own.
Yes. And my comment to that is I would have to look at every motion that was made and see if that was representative of our initial thinking. I'm not sure.
I don't think
Or
we
she's
ever
a,
did
excuse,
make a
let me finish,
decision.
please. The decision of understanding our thought process, or we send her there and do nothing, and she comes back and they act on it, and we don't act on it. There's a gap between there that you need to understand that when you send something there that they're going to give input. So my question is, again, do you want to send her there to give input, or to be quiet, or no part, or just representation and report back to us, no representation, or do we not send her there?
I thought that we were sending her there for the last couple of meetings to be our eyes and ears, so that she could report back to us what was going on at the meetings, so that we can decide whether we wanted to continue even funding, maybe we would want to continue funding it again at some time. But in order for us to completely back out from that deal, then we have no idea of what's going on, so we could not change our mind on funding if we don't know what's going on over there. So I thought she was just supposed to be our eyes and ears so that she could report to back to us what's going on at that board, so that we can see what's going on.
I've never remembered the board taking that action on that since I've been here, but if that's the intent of what you want, we can move forward with that action. Chuck?
I would move that Denise be instructed or permitted, however you want to say that, to go to the next several meetings before our next meeting here, to observe and report back what occurred, but that she be instructed not to take any action on our behalf.
That motion?
That's my motion.
I would second that.
Motion on the floor and a second. Further discussion?
I've comment on that, and that is that it seems, I don't know, I'm trying to think my way through this, but we're going to send a letter to the board asking them why they want to approve one of our directors, and yet we're going to send her as a representative at the same time. Seems
No, we're sending
odd.
her as our eyes and ears.
That's true.
But anybody can go. I mean,
Can't speak.
director,
Is that true or not?
Right.
Okay, I say that she don't go, and we can just,
right.
So we got a motion on the floor and a second, and my comment is I'm voting no for it because I just feel not simply there. I think that we have a representative of the board that she can speak for the board, because she knows, pretty much understands what our goal and mission is. And if we're sending there just to listen, we can just send anybody there to
Right.
listen.
no, you can't.
Please let me finish. And so my intent is that I'm going to vote no, because I assume, I would like to see us back out altogether and start over. And so that's my position. Comments from other directors?
Okay, you cannot just go to that meeting. I have literally been thrown out of that meeting.
Me too.
Chuck?
My understanding is the same, that other members of the public have been excluded from the meeting. You're not part of the, shall I say, privileged people to attend. You're just a member of the public, you're not allowed. And consequently, you have to be, well, you're just not a member of the public, so you can't attend. And so that's why I made my motion, so that someone could, as Sandra had said, go and observe and report back to give us information, so that we could have information to decide whether we want to, at some point in the future, maybe financially support them or not. You know, as I indicated way back some months or years ago, I made the motion to withhold funds because we were being excluded from participating in the meetings.
I just get back to, why do we want to participate if we're being excluded, other people are being excluded, the public's being excluded? Why do we want to participate in that? I don't understand.
This is the first statement in our mission statement.
It is.
Right in South Dakota.
Yeah, we have an obligation to.
We have an obligation.
We have an
We're trying to
obligation to,
fulfill it.
we're not just the public. We are a state agency and we have a right to be on that board representing the water rights of the taxpayers in this area.
Not just the right.
We are an
but an
elected
obligation.
official that should be sitting on that board, representing our taxpayers.
That's fine, but they're not letting us on the board.
And who's
Well,
not? I
then-
mean, the county
Well-
commissioners.
That board is unconstitutional totally, because they are spending taxpayer monies without being elected individuals spending taxpayer monies.
Any further comment?
Just that I'm going to agree with what you're saying there. I think we should step back a little bit. I think it's confusing to be asking why they're not accepting us, and we're sending someone who's kind of representing us, so I'm not going to vote for this either.
I won't either.
Any comments from the public? Any more from the directors? Okay, we got a motion on the floor to send Denise to the county, to the task force meeting and just listen and report back. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed.
Can we do a roll call?
Roll call.
Roll call, please.
Roll call. Rogers,
Nay.
can I just do for clarification? So the motion is that I go to these meetings and with a gag order, basically, and,
Listening, yes,
okay,
and reporting back.
and report back. So Rogers, no. Sawyer,
No.
Akers,
Yes.
Bashara,
No.
Hazen Oral,
Yes.
Jasper,
Yes.
Paulson.
Yes.
I attend the meetings
All right. that's taken
and
care-
report back.
Clarified on that. Item 2 more items from the directors.
Excuse me. Did you ask Dan?
I am sorry, Dan,
Yes. Story of my life, we don't live it.
Any other items from the directors? Items from the public?
I've got a couple of items. This handout, this guide, the South Dakota Opens Meetings Law, who supplied that? May I ask?
No idea.
I did.
Well, I don't know how to say this, so I'll just say it, I guess. This thing is, got some bad information in it. One of the statutes that's in here has been changed 3 times since this was updated. So I guess whoever provides information should make sure it's current.
What are you talking about, George?
Right here is a guide to open meetings, South Dakota's open meetings law, prepared by the South Dakota Office of the Attorney General, South Dakota Municipal League, updated August of 2009. So wherever that came from, somebody checked it and do real easy now on the internet. The South Dakota legislature changed one of the statutes in 2010, 2012, and 2013. If you're a public entity, you probably ought to operate with the current law. So we were handing that out, well, I guess Denise owned up to it. Spring Trek 319 representation, we talked about that at length, and I'll just say that the manager, or your administrator reported that she attended the Spring Trek Task Force meeting on July 9th. And once again, did this board did this board sign a contract on July 1 that excluded the 319, Spring Creek 319 project?
I'm going to say that it was silent. It's not addressed. And it's my understanding she was acting upon the appointment to that board by the Pennington County Commission. And she was operating under the understanding she was representing this entity, and we just took a vote to clarify her future actions on that task force.
Once again, my question was, did you, 8, sign a contract that deleted or removed, specifically removed that provision from the contract on July 1? Yes or no? There's no qualification. Yes, you did, or no, you didn't.
Yes, we did.
Okay?
Was it removed or was it not provided for? I don't know.
The previous contract, I will say that I did see the previous contract. In fact, I think I was one that opposed it. Initially, well, I wasn't on the board. But the first contract, I did see in it specifically. Specifically, it did say that your contractor would attend. So it was specifically in there. In fact, we were, what's the right word, I guess, at the county commission meeting, not Shanghai is not the right word, but we found out, Dan and I found out at the meeting that it was in the contract. Anyway, that's history. July 19th, no, 9th was history, and she says that she attended the task force meeting. Well, words have meaning. I'm here to tell you that she a lot more than attended that meeting. She did a lot more than represent you at the meeting. She did a lot more than participate. She basically ran that meeting. That's the levels of participation. As one example, I wanted to correct the minutes, just like thank you for correcting the minutes of this board, but I wanted to correct the notes of a previous meeting where I was quoted, misquoted, along with 2 other individuals. And the person that made the motion to approve the notes was her, your contractor. So she shouldn't even been there. But here she is denying me the public participation, basically, or at least enabling the prohibition of me being public, being able to be heard. Now, and you've already heard that there was no public discussion about that meeting. That's a different matter. Anyway, real quickly, the 319 background.
I want to go back to your one comment and try to see where you're going with it, to see if we need to take any action. Your comment, did she have any authority to act at the task force on the 319 Spring Creek Committee? She was on the board, appointed on the board by the Pennington County Commission. It was our assumption we were being represented by her because we didn't get the person on there that we wanted. She participated at this meeting. We corrected and identified and made a correction on the board's wishes. So I'm not sure what other further action you want us to take.
As I recall the contract, and thanks for bringing that up, as I recall the contract and the discussion at the last meeting or meeting before was this board's appraisal or assessment, evaluation, whatever word you want to use, of your contractor. I would ask you very, very definitely to keep that in mind, that kind of performance. You know, I agree with Dan, you shouldn't be evaluating the contractor. That just makes no sense to me. But since you agreed to, in the contract, to evaluate her performance, that should be certainly part of your evaluation. If she can't understand the simple fact that the contract was specifically, it's not like one of these things that was kind of under the radar, so to speak. It was front and center. Her participation in the Spring Creek 319 project was pretty highly illuminated. Okay?
So the action you want us to take is to address it
Keep
in
that in
her
mind
performance?
when she's evaluated.
Any further action?
Well,
Since you're on the Pennington County Commission, do you want to extract all the things that she did at that task force? I mean, I think you have that authority.
I'm not on the commission.
No? Okay.
I'm George Public right now.
All right.
Okay, I'm not on the county commission. No. However, having mentioned that, come January, you might want to resubmit your, I'm gonna go there. Real quickly, on the 319 background, June of 2009, okay, came from Pier. So just so the background for you folks, just a quick background. A guy named Pete Jarvis, and I call him Santa Claus, came from Pier looking for, did begging, not looking, begging for somebody to take on sponsorship. Because this is his job. His job is looking for somebody that he can hand out money to. This is, it's like the money is free from Washington. So we sat there in Hill City, and I don't know, 30 people there maybe, and he was looking for sponsors. And basically, Pennington County, and in all deference to Pennington County, there was nobody left except the Board of Commissioners to take on that project. So that's how it got there. And they talk about other sponsors and other partners.
Just a question. I always had a question on that.
Sure.
Why did he approach West Dakota, and if so, why did West Dakota decline? I'm not sure if you know that history.
Pete Jarvis, if he approached West Dakota, all I can tell you, I don't know anything personally, except I'm pretty sure he said that he did approach West Dakota. And that was part of my time and Sandy's time. And Sandy and I we came on board together, what, 3 years or 4 years ago?
3 years.
And this was in 2009, this happened, and then we came on in 2010. So I can't answer that question for you.
Okay.
But I was told that he approached West Dakota. And whatever the refusal was, I have no idea.
Okay, thanks.
That part
I didn't know if
didn't
you were part of the...
Yeah, and it's a good question. That part I don't know.
No, thanks.
But I do know, I sat there in Hill City listening to him, just begging for somebody to be a sponsor. And then the other partners, and the more partners you get, the more important is these kind of things look. You got this partner and this partner and this partner, and that's kind of back to this Eco Park thing. You folks don't want West Dakota's name on the Eco Park deal. Anyway, that's the background. The Spring Creek cost so far, we've about $1 million, depending upon how you calculate it. About $1 million, and most of that money is going in the Respect's pocket. And the next time you're up here on a hill by the Coke, the old Coke plant, Respect's got a really, really fancy building up there on the hill. We're paying for that building with projects like this. And I know you don't want to hear me talk much more, but I just can't resist. Environmental professional. I think I heard those words right. Environmental professional. Can I ask your contractor what her degree is in? Mr. Chairman, can you ask your contractor what her degree is in? What her academic degree is? What her qualifications are? An environmental professional, the Hill City manager, if he has any environmental professional, or if he has any background in that, I'd be really, really surprised. The Black Hills fly fisher guy, and I don't know all the rest of the people. Well, I should know them, but those two come to mind. She was telling you that she's on that board because, by God, they want environmental professionals, or something like that. The Hill City guy and the Rapid City guy hasn't been there for a long, long time. The Black Hill Fisher guy. What the hell is their technical merits? And I'll leave you with this. That last task force meeting, no public discussion, period. And they were a banking committee. They didn't talk about the technical merits of the projects. They kind of got a little bit on the technical merits of the rock shop outside of Hill City. $50,000, $10,000 for riparian and $40,000 for stormwater for the rock shop. And they talked a little bit about technicalities. As soon as I got there, the Respect guy said, "Oh, wait a minute, confidential." Thank you.
Thanks, George. Any other comments from the public?
Just one, as I depart, I just wanted to say thanks for allowing me to show up at the committee again. And I have to tell you quite honestly, I'm a little flummoxed by what appears to be a wide-ranging discussion on a variety of topics that I can't quite frankly understand how it helps you fulfill your mission. I think you should think over some of these penny ante sorts of complaints. Don't go to fulfill your mission. So think that over in your heart. And I plan to be at the next meeting, but it'd be interesting to see it change the nature of the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the public? All right, no more items from the public. Motion to adjourn.
May I just make a comment on what you just said? Until we get our policies and stuff down, these little petty ante things as he's talking about will always interfere with what goes on in here. And then once that's all addressed and things get to start operating the way they should, then we can actually get back to the job we're taxed to do. But until these little things get settled, I don't ever see it getting down to a good, hard water discussions that we should be having.
All right. Anybody else?
Motion to adjourn.
Got a motion to adjourn from Chuck?
I'll second it.
Second from Mr. Aker.
We had 3 seconds.
Any further comments from the directors on adjournment, from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Trying to make sure I got the public.